Unc Sam Seder cooks Tim Pool in his skate park. Freaky Friday. Election watch. Hog watch. Let me see if big boy Ed Ingermentum wants to come on. Okay, we'll do that. Ingermentum is my Steve Kornacki. Zoomer Steve Kornacki. On to explain polls and more. Get in now. The recent polls he shared, which is very good, shows Kamala +2 on all blue wall. Yeah. I mean, look, there are a lot of polls that are like Kamala is losing by massive numbers, and then there are polls that are like Kamala is winning reliably. I think ultimately, wait, hold on. Oh, does Trump want to kill Liz Cheney? We'll talk about that as well. I'm gonna give that to Trump a little bit. I'm gonna give that. I think that the Trump Liz Cheney thing is like one of those old school 2016 style statements that like offers enough plausible deniability to Donald Trump. Like, he knows what he's doing when he says shit like that, but it's like very clearly within the context of like, oh, you'd be talking a different tune if you were the one who was actually fighting out there, is what he was trying to say. But he said it specifically in a way where he was like, I'm going to kill you. And it ties back to like a lot of what he has said about killing his political opponents with the military. So, you know, it's a unique predicament. But yeah, is an interesting situation, folks. All right, we got it. We're blasting off. Let's freaking go. We got a lot to talk about today. What if he doesn't want to win? No, Trump definitely wants to win, brother. That's not a thing. Like, Trump definitely wants to win because this is a majority report. We're gonna watch the Sam Seder annihilation tour in a little bit. I saw bits and pieces of it early this morning. I saw that he put the fucking beanie on, which is so sick. I was a little confused. I don't know if it's their main channel or not, but like I was a little confused with like how little Tim's
people are already
live concurrent viewership looked like. And I don't know if it's because they just didn't want to watch their favorite beanie boy get absolutely destroyed by my uncle, my real Uncle Sam. I've accepted Kamala will win, which makes me worry because these people will not listen to the uncommitted movement or anyone who cares about Gaza. There's a current effort by progressives to force a vote on troops leaving the region that many in this squad, of course not AOC, are threatening to do. Dog, are we talking about the Trump Epstein tapes? Oh shit, you're right, dude. What the fuck? I can't believe I forgot to add that on. Okay. Yes, dude. Yes. That's crazy. That is the real October, November surprise, I guess, technically. That shit is like, yeah, bro, there's actual tapes. Like, there's Trump Epstein tapes. We'll get to it in a second, but it's like Michael Wolff must have been real close to Epstein to get 100 hours of tape. Yeah, I don't know how he does it, man. I don't know how he does it. Like, Michael Wolff never ceases to surprise me because, like, in many ways, like, he is a fabulist, right? He definitely is a fabulist. So you can't really do that when you are supposed to be like a serious journalist. He also is like obviously a very self-interested guy, right? Like he will always withhold like information that would be good for the public to know until the most opportune moment for his own personal clout and his own like person. Like I'm convinced Michael Wolff could have figured out a way where like Donald Trump had his hands on a nuclear launch code and was like ready to let it rip. And this motherfucker would wait until his next book came out to reveal this information. You know what I mean? Like, he is the type of dude, he's the type of dude who's like so obviously selfish and so career oriented that he would not even care. He could be like, yeah, nuclear holocaust could be happening tomorrow. I'm not letting somebody know. I'm not letting a single damn person know until my book comes out 8 months later. And it's like, I feel like you should have probably let people know about this information that you were retaining and holding on to for approximately 8 months. And it's so like, that's an annoying thing about Michael Wolff. And the other annoying thing is that, like I said, he is a bit of a fabulous, like, there's a lot of stuff that he like will report on that you're like, I don't know if this is real. But then he also has like solid journalist chops. So he will just turn around and find this shit And it's like, what are you doing? Like, how? Like, why would you not reveal this? Why would you not reveal this last election? Oh, Michael Wolff. Am I mistaken Michael Wolff with Bob Woodward, actually? I think it is Michael Wolff, isn't it? Michael Wolff is the one who like, or is it? I think I might be mistaken Michael Wolff with Bob Woodward, actually. He's the one who wrote Fire. No. He is the one who wrote Fire and Fury. No, it is Michael Wolff. I'm thinking of Michael Wolff. I'm thinking of the right guy. Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the right guy. But Bob Woodward is a little bit like that too, which is funny. But that's not. Bob Woodward is like that as well. Bob Woodward and Michael Wolff both are very similar to one another. Also, their book covers and like the way that they operate is also kind of similar. But it is what it is. But at least like Bob Woodward has like solid reporting background and like a more serious amount of like research and investigative reporting that he's done that he can like rely on, whereas like Michael Wolff is a little bit more silly. Yeah, Woodward wrote the book called Rage, which is similar to Fire and Fury. Woodward wrote Rage. Fire and Fury was written by Michael Wolff. Bob Woodward wrote Rage, wrote Fear, wrote War. The latest one was War. And the Trump tapes, All the President's Men. I mean, here, look. This is Bob Woodward's books, latest books, okay? And this is Michael Wolff's books. So you will understand why I was a little confused by who we were talking about. He wrote Fire and Fury, Landslide. I was thinking of Bob Woodward when I was talking about like being a bit of a fabulist. But yeah, Woodward was the one who also, once again, they both have the same attitude towards like important information that they will hold on to until their book is coming out, okay? Let me copy your homework. Okay, make sure to change it though. Yeah, we're gonna watch Sam Seder with you're telling me a cynical asshole journalist held back pertinent information to make money on a book deal? You're telling me that for the first time? Yeah, I just think that like, I don't know. I feel like there's a duty. Like there is a little bit of a responsibility to like inform the public on, pertinent information. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit more old school, but like, why don't you do a byline? I guess Michael Wolff did do it for the Daily Beast, but like do a fucking byline and then promote the book that way and be like, there's even more explosive stuff in there. I don't know. It's a very weird situation that the state of journalism in America has become a unique situation. Hey, that's amazing. That is amazing. I can't believe he went with Sanji. Blackleg Sanji, really? Is that FD's favorite character? I gotta text him. I'm a Mosshead man, so that's probably why. Sanji has Rise Up. Sanji the GOAT, FD knows ball. Sanji is a gooner, dude. Oh, you got a problem with Sanji now? Well, you have to remember, I am a Zoro head. Like, it's basic, it's classic, but it's reliable. You know what I mean? He is the man. Zoro is the GOAT. You want to know how hard Zoro is the GOAT? He works hard. He's ripped. He's the strongest out of like physical prowess in terms of like pure physical prowess. Zoro is the strongest. Like in terms of like human power. We're not talking about like hockey. Okay. And not only that, but also he has no cyber modifications like Sanji, which is, just saying. It's a lot easier to fucking light your shit on fire when you are a genetically modified specimen created by your fascist father. That's all I'm gonna say, right? Like Zoro is natty, right? He's natty, straightforward. He's natty, and also on top of that, he is one of the best characters in the entire thing, in the entire library of characters that are fantastic, in spite of the obvious reality that his backstory is the most lacking. Think about that. Like every other, like Sanji's backstory, probably my favorite backstory in the entire franchise. Maybe Trafalgar Law. Zoro, no backstory whatsoever. Basically no backstory at all. Like, it's kind of wild how shitty and how lackluster his backstory is in comparison to like all these other people. Don't throw up question marks. Compare that to fucking Nico Robin. compare that to Nami, Zoro's very clear lack of backstory is apparent. Compared to that to Chopper, entire arcs have been dedicated to every single character, every single like top mainline character and their backstories. I would go so far as say Brook has had more of a fucking backstory than Zoro. Brook has more backstory than Zoro. Is crazy. Like the Laboon saga is like multiple. It spans across multiple fucking arcs and shit. Like, what's Zoro's backstory? Oh, he wanted to become a sword fighter, and the daughter of the samurai that was teaching him in the dojo fucking died because she fell down the stairs. Like, that's not a backstory, okay? That is like barely a fucking backstory. That's an insane thing. Down these stairs. That's how she died. She died because she fell down the stairs, dude. Even Usopp with his connections to Shanks through Yasopp has more backstory. Yeah, but he was a descendant of a samurai. I thought that there would be more expanded in Wano, which I thought would have been a perfect opportunity to get further into like Zoro's lore and Zoro's backstory. I was like kind of shocked that like Wano did not expand on that shit at all, you know? Even Usopp is go to get the fuck out of here. Okay, dude. Yeah. And what was this stream? I didn't get to watch it.
As a woman, would you approach him?
Oh, whoops. You dropped some. You good? You need some help there? What's up? Sniper King is goated. Usopp is mid. Okay. I wouldn't go that far. That's Usopp the God you're speaking on, dude. That's Usopp the God. That is kind of crazy that he's like, he literally is just straight up called God Usopp after a certain point. Yeah, his like different versions have been pretty crazy. Soja King, Sniper King, absolutely goated character on top, but that's not Usopp. That's a totally separate person. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people just say, oh, like that's Soja King. Like, have you seen either of them in the same room? And it's like, no, like you haven't, but that doesn't mean they're the same person, right? Anyway, but yeah, this is it. We're blasting the frick off. I saw this. An Oakland man who recorded himself getting thrown out of a Palestinian-owned cafe has been celebrated for pushing back against anti-Semitism, but a history of public outbursts raises questions about his story. Yeah, there's some little psyops happening left and right, it seems. But we're gonna start out with Pimpool getting absolutely shellacked by Uncle Sam. Okay.
6 hours tonight.
Well, I'm saying, is your baby born already?
No.
Oh,
Coming soon.
I'm talking about when your child
Coming
comes.
soon. Bro is announcing like a fucking album release.
Yeah, well, I mean, what little sleep I already get probably will be less.
All right, well, there you go.
Right on, man. So we'll start light. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, the election
We'll be back in a second.
Is Tuesday, but people are already voting.
No, wait. We got to talk about what am I doing here?
Well, sure. I was going to start light, but you can go with whatever you want.
No, I mean, it's light to me, but like what? I thought I was banned. Didn't you say I was banned and blacklisted?
Maybe. I don't know the specifics. You have to. There's something to that effect.
I can send you a link.
Yeah.
But I got I teed it up here.
It's hard for me to remember verbatim everything I said, but
let's see what do I got here?
I would say.
Oh, I mean, you pretty specifically banned.
Did I say no Sam Seder at all?
Well, I think so. Here, wait a second.
Trouble. Sam Seder's blacklisted by a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. Did I say us?
I'm not exaggerating. This is not a joke. Yes, there are many large podcasts that have outright said they will never work with him, and has nothing to do with being afraid to debate him. Sam Seder's off the list. This guy is a manipulative, lying con man.
I mean, that's pretty strong stuff.
My confusion comes from, did I say I would never have you on?
Don't have anything to do with him. And that's why Sam Seder makes all these videos, and he focuses on drama. I mean, the man's obsession with Dave Rubin is laughable.
I agree with that to this day.
Oh no, I actually I have a
did I say
real reason for that.
Did I say?
Yeah, of course.
I say I would never bring you on?
Oh yeah, you did.
Okay, I might have.
I don't know if I have that specific video teed up. I might though.
I may have. I usually, if I get like heated or something, but I tend not to be as definitive on things like this.
Well, it wasn't just that one time too. When you went on Patrick Bet-David's show, you said the same thing.
Well, but you know it's true.
What's true?
There are a lot of big shows that have blacklisted you.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
It's not about you, nobody wanting to debate you. I mean, the first thing I asked was like, let's talk about the issues, and you immediately pulled up drama. That's
Well, it's not drama. I mean, I think everybody wants to know. It's like a weird. You know, if you, I used to be a script writer, and if you put a loaded gun in the first scene and you don't resolve it, people are going to be distracted. So this way we can just deal with this, get that out of the way, and then move on to stuff that is more, I think, like substantive.
Yeah. But that's it, right? It's not my business to tell other shows that have brought it up. But
No, I'm not concerned about other shows. I know why. I'm just curious. What am I doing here?
what are you doing here?
Yeah,
I decided to have you on. I don't know. I figured there were probably misconceptions you had about me. I think that a lot of what you think about what I say comes from clips and not the actual show. So there's like,
I don't really have conceptions of you.
This started because you said something that was untrue about my position on the death penalty, and I was like, I think Sam saw a clip that someone pulled out of context and didn't actually hear like my 2-hour diatribe on.
I don't. I think actually what I was talking about, I don't think I ever said whether you believe in the death penalty or not. I mean,
you cited a quote where you said that I said something like,
I cited a quote, or did I play a video?
At the beginning of a video, Tim Pool agrees that people who commit treason should get the death penalty, which is
that right? Do you have the video? You must have the video. No? Oh, wait a second.
And I just went, holy crap. And
let me see if I got it, because I'm pretty sure I remember this. It was in the context of you suing Kamala Harris.
And
you were on with Laura Loomer.
Right.
And you said the words,
here we go.
people who get the death penalty, people who commit treason should get the death penalty.
What's the context of that sentence?
What's the context of that sentence?
Right. So there's a clip that's 5 seconds long.
Oh, no, but I watched the whole rest of it. Like, I know you went back and forth, but it was so weird, because you should really, if you can find this and put this up, because what I found fascinating about it was that you literally did say on multiple times in that going back and forth, because apparently what happened is you got in trouble at one point with, I don't know, some streaming service about people calling for the death penalty or whatever it was. I don't know the background of that.
YouTube says you can't call for the death penalty as a legal mechanism.
Okay. And so she brought up, I think these people committed treason. They should get the death penalty. And you said,
I don't know if she said, I think she
I
said,
don't care what she said, really, for this sake. But I'm quite sure you said, if you commit treason, you should get the death penalty. Right now,
what words are you missing from that sentence? Because it sounds like you just heard a clip.
No. I watched the whole thing.
Okay, well then,
and then at one point afterwards,
let's pause.
Yeah, you said if you commit treason, you should get the death penalty, and you have been caught committing treason. Have you reconsidered your stance on capital punishment?
We'll break this down.
Sure.
Is it currently codified in law that if you commit treason, you are out, the penalty is death?
What do you mean by codified?
Like, is U.S. law states that the penalty for treason is death?
Not necessarily, but it is one.
It is, right. The penalty for treason is death.
What is the penalty for murder?
It varies. It can be,
it can be the death penalty.
Exactly.
So it's the exact same dynamic as treason.
Yes.
Oh.
So if we're talking about, in that context, people levying...
Tim Pool, why are you talking about leniency in sentencing with a man who has consistently gone to the tort conference for the past decade for fun? Are you insane? Like this, you're talking to a man who lives and dies by the tort. Okay? That is what he does for fun. Like, this is not a normal person. Okay? He reads Social Security reports for fun on his off time. This is what he does for fun. It makes no sense to me, okay? I at least watch anime in the off season when I'm not fucking, when I'm not like covering the news or reading the news. Like, at least I have like some fun things that I do. Sam Seder's idea of fun is homework, okay? Like sometimes I'll go on vacation with my family and I'll still stream there, right? and I'll care about like the local politics of the area that I go to, and it'll be fun to see like a unique perspective. Once again, repeating, Sam Seder's idea of fun is going to the tort conference. Tort, a wrongful act or an infringement of a right other than under contract, leading to a civil legal liability.
War against the United States, to which I said, I don't believe any of these people committed treason.
Correct.
Sedition would be trying to undermine or cause damage to the government.
Correct. That's
Treason.
not the issue.
Right. And so the context of that conversation is, one, I don't agree with the death penalty. And in no circumstances.
But you did say the words. If you committed treason, you should get the death penalty.
Okay. So once again, do you not understand?
Would you agree if someone commits murder, they should get the death penalty?
No.
I agree with that.
Right. And
But you did say if they commit treason, they should get the death penalty.
so if we're talking about the penalty for levying war against a country, whether you want it to or not, if a judge sentences someone to death, should they get the death penalty?
If a judge, I don't think people should get the death penalty under any circumstances.
If someone is shooting at another person, should they be shot at and killed?
If someone's shooting at another person, should they be shot at
Yeah.
and killed?
If someone is committing an act of violence and actively, is it within the legal rights of a person to return with lethal?
I like that Tim Pool's like a legal process in which there's an entire investigation conducted, a prosecution occurs, and you go to the civil or you go to the criminal court structure, and then the punishment dished out to you is death, is the same as like in the moment shooting someone in self-defense. Like we are not on the same planet. If you think that this is equivalent, okay, you are talking about an entirely different scenario, brother. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's not even. You can't say that it's an analogy because it's not an analogy at all. One is a entire process. Like one is after apprehension, detainment, criminal prosecution, and then sentencing that comes afterwards versus someone defending themselves in the moment.
Force.
You mean self-defense?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Right now, whether you want it to or not, if someone robs a liquor store, should they go to jail?
Should they go to jail?
Under the current laws, regardless of your opinions, should the police arrest the person?
Should the people arrest the person for robbing a liquor store?
Yes.
I mean, I think they should, yes.
Do you think in literally every single circumstance, then, no matter what happens, if someone commits a robbery, they should be arrested?
I mean, I suppose there could be extenuating circumstances, but yes, if you commit a crime, you should be arrested.
So the clarification that I'm trying to make, it's not about, I don't think there's any real reason to try and go back and parse semantics. The concept was, if people are levying war against the United States, such as we're on the battlefield somewhere in Iraq or whatever, right?
Wait, this whole thing was about treason where you were saying that...
Do you want me to explain the ideas, or do you want to just go in circles? I don't understand.
Well, I want you just to address what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to.
Instead of talking
You
about
interrupted
war.
me.
All right, go ahead, please.
Treason is levying war.
Treason is levying war?
Or providing aid to the enemy of the United States in a time of war.
Well, it also, you can be, I mean, there's been people who have been charged with treason when we're not in an act of war, but yes, I guess. But however you want to parse this, treason is a legal charge against somebody, and there are multiple potential penalties for that, one of which includes capital punishment. And
just for the sake of clarity, because in the show we're not talking about specifics of someone may or may not be wrongly charged. If you're asking me why I would say something like should be, it's rooted in this. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses of the same overt act or confession in open court. So the issue at hand was...
I like that they left the empty chair on there. Like they didn't shut down that camera. What's happening here? I mean, that's like a production note, but like, what are we doing here? Like, come on, you're like a multi-million-dollar operator. You got like millions of dollars from the Russian government.
when we were talking, and I said, I don't think any of these people committed treason. I don't think anything they've done is worthy of death. I don't agree with the death penalty. The return is, but what if they're levying war against us? And then someone decides their life should be forfeit.
I watched that video, and in fact, I remember that.
Hey, Hassan, I don't know just anything about Sam. Did he have a history in debates, or is he just that guy with the knowledge of both? He loves debating. He's very good at debating. And also on top of that, he is very knowledgeable. This is Sam. Sam loves doing this stuff. Like he truly enjoys this. I think a lot more than I do, in terms of like talking to silly people and like unwinding them step by step. Now, Tim Pool himself is not exactly the most apt, astute debater either. But yeah, he is. What do you mean Russian money? They're American. Tim Pool, were you not around when the? Okay. You're going to have to take this up with the Department of Justice and the FBI, my friend, because they disagree with you. Like, there was a whole investigation conducted into Tenet Media, which is precisely what Sam is going to be talking about, which is why he started talking about the death penalty for treason, because he's going to walk him through those steps and inevitably get to, has your position changed on death penalty for treason since you committed treason by receiving money from a foreign adversary to do propaganda in the United States of America in an active proxy war that's currently happening within Ukraine and Russia, which is technically within the confines of what Tim Pool had talked about, or, you know, in terms of like treason and the death penalty for treason. So
this now, actually, we're going over the ridiculousness of your lawsuit. And I said, you know,
don't trust anything Daniel Strata Music says. What? Did you ever beat Elden Ring DLC 1024 2024? Are you okay, chatter?
Tim says he doesn't agree with the death penalty. That's fine. And then they played more where you say, if you've committed treason, you should get the death penalty. I mean, and the interesting thing is, then I watched, hold on, let me finish. And
do
then,
you want to do a drama circle jerk, or do you want to actually talk about the ideas of the death penalty?
Ooh, he's already getting mad. It's like, dude, we're 10 minutes in. Why are you mad already? Why you have to be mad?
And what should or should not happen?
no, I think that I personally am against the death penalty. I think
So let's
you
talk
are
about that.
maybe against the death penalty.
I'm 100% against death penalty.
But what I found fascinating, it was as if you watch that video as it goes further along, and maybe you can release it. I don't know if it's behind a paywall or what. I watched it somewhere, so I know it exists. Maybe it was on Rumble. And if you go along, it's almost like you catch yourself and you realize, like, wait a second, I'm against the death penalty. So no, you shouldn't capital punishment. And that's one of the things that I think, like, in terms of like that I have always found fascinating about you, and that there was actually a great video by Timba Toast on how you vacillate between different political ideas as a way of like maintaining a certain brand.
What is the brand?
Well, I don't, not exactly sure what you think the brand is, but
here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. You know, if I post a joke on X that is like over the top, for instance, I tweeted Kamala Harris is like Hitler and Stalin times 200, and she's going to start 800 wars. That was actually written about in various liberal outlets as if it was a fact statement. And so I'm sitting here being like, can they not tell? Well, there's Poe's law. I get it. Sometimes they don't. But the issue at hand right now is just semantics. So instead of saying like, well,
dude, we're in the communication business. Like, our words are important. Now, listen,
Sure.
I'm about to pull out it was a joke defense. Very, very ineffective, I think.
I understand people misinterpreting a
finish the
tweet.
point.
Believe me, I've been there.
I will just say this for the sake of clarity. Right now, regardless of my opinions on law, should the law be that someone will receive the death penalty, then they should receive it. I oppose it.
But it doesn't necessarily, treason, the punishment for treason is not necessarily the death penalty any more than it is with murder.
All right, so let's just try and...
Why would you ever say, if you're
So
against
this
death
is, once
penalty...
again, misconception I'm trying to get past, so let me explain.
Okay.
In the circumstance where someone has committed a death-worthy trespass, I oppose the death penalty. I would advocate against it. We recently had a big case where there were two instances where people were put to death. One guy, the family even said it shouldn't happen. They had cut a deal with the prosecutor. It still happened. And that was, I believe it was, who was that? That was Missouri. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people who watch my show were quite outraged that a family would say no. But the issue at hand is, I don't assert myself over the rest of the country in law, which means if the mechanism of the courts is as such, that's what should happen. I will fight against it. That's the semantic misunderstanding.
Oh,
so
all right.
Let's just put it like this.
Because you were so offended. I mean, the reason why I thought I was here was because you were so offended that I said you were against the death penalty.
You said I was for it.
And I got confused when you said someone should get the death penalty
Under a mechanism
for
of
treason.
law that I oppose.
Well, you never said those words.
But that was the whole conversation.
No, actually, it wasn't.
Literally was.
We could play it.
But I mean, look, how about we just, instead of going back and forth and saying it was this show where these things were said,
I don't think he understands what opposing a law means. Like, you can't say you oppose the death penalty, but if that's currently the law, then you're on board with it. Like, then it should happen. That means you're not in opposition to the death penalty. I oppose capital punishment, which is why I will always say I oppose capital punishment. I'll even offer coverage to instances where capital punishment is occurring, like specifically the case in Missouri or the one in Texas, where like people with a lot of evidence as to their innocence are still executed by the state. Like, that is what opposition to the death penalty or opposition to capital punishment looks like. You know, the one in Texas was stayed. Well, the other one wasn't, but regardless, even if someone is guilty, I still oppose capital punishment, for the record. Like, regardless of whether there is enough information, evidence readily available of their innocence, I just genuinely oppose the death penalty in general. I don't think it's appropriate.
we lay it out on the table. There it is.
Okay, there.
Death penalty should be opposed.
We agree on that.
The government is a failed arbiter of who should live or die. This mechanism doesn't work at an institutional level.
I don't know that anybody is.
It makes it seem like he is opposing the death penalty now, specifically for treason, because he may or may not have, accidentally committed treason in terms of being directly financed and changing, being directly financed by a foreign adversary government.
Is a arbiter of who should live or die, but yes.
Excuse me. There is some context that is more challenging, such as if a man pointed a weapon at your children, would you decide that he should die?
I mean, if someone pointed a weapon at my children, I would attempt to do whatever I needed to do to stop them. But that's different
Up to and
than
including lethal force.
I mean, if that's what it took, of course.
So that is you making the decision that you will take action which may lead to the death of an individual.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would suffer the consequences, but I don't believe in general that that in capital punishment. I mean, that's not capital punishment. That's
I agree. I'm just saying
self-defense, or
in certain circumstances, a person will decide someone may be about to die. And there's other issues, of course, like whether to render medical aid is a different circumstance. If someone is already dying, then there's if someone is in peril but you can't save them. But in terms of a human being making an active decision to end someone's life, there are many circumstances where someone will decide that they are the arbiter of that decision. Police officers do it every day. Soldiers do it every day, and often regular people. We have the Penny trial in New York right now, where they've got the trial going on for the Daniel Penny in New York, where he put that guy in the chokehold. And the guy died. He made that decision at that point.
He killed the guy.
He did. And he made that decision for whatever reason. I am going to apply this technique to this man, may result in death. So at a certain point, someone makes that choice. The question then is, do we agree that the choice was necessary or that they were backed into a corner? And that's a difficult decision. So I would just put it this way. I think in a perfect world.
This has nothing to do with capital punishment, though.
It's about whether someone chooses someone else should die.
Right, but that has nothing to do with capital punishment.
They share
capital punishment is
they
definitionally
someone choosing to die.
a punishment that is put out by the government, as opposed to, an individual's decision as to whether or not they're going to apply lethal force to somebody. It has nothing to do with it. You would never say
they're literally
that Penny provided capital punishment to that guy on the subway, because
anyone's making that argument.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with capital punishment.
Just in the sense that someone's making a decision over someone's death, and the question being, in the case of self-defense, I agree there are circumstances, and in the case of capital punishment, I agree there are no circumstances.
Okay.
I don't believe there's a reality where the government has successfully subdued an individual who they are no longer a threat, and then they just decide 20 years later, now let's kill the person. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I do not believe that we should have capital punishment. I do not believe in the death penalty.
How do we stop it?
Well, I mean, there have been times in the past where we've come close, I think. Sadly, I think because of all of the ginned up stuff about crime in this country over the past couple of years.
Yes, talk about the crime hysteria, crime panic, crime hysteria time. Let's do it.
I think we're moving in the wrong direction. I think the Democrats actually took it out of their platform this year that they're against the capital punishment. It is a problem. There is a cost associated with the attempts to scare people about crime in this country, and that's one of the costs, that we move further away from some type of positive public policy.
4% of death row inmates are likely innocent. And that means at an institutional level, people in this country accept 4 in 100 people.
Wait, what? Like, is he? I'm confused as to what Tim is arguing for here. I'm not going to lie, because it's like you're arguing against capital punishment, but then you're tying it back to like how it might be appropriate under certain circumstances because like self-defense exists. And it's like, if you think 4%, if you think the percentage of 4% in a legal structure where like innocent people are executed by the state is unconscionable, I don't even know what the percentage of like self-defense instances that actually end up shooting someone that had no business being shot at all, but simply because of castle doctrine, the person got away with it under our current legal system. That number has to be higher than 4%, like significantly higher than 4%. So innocent executions in the heat of the moment are significantly fucking higher. Like executing an innocent person because you were fearful of them is significantly higher. There's a shit ton of manslaughter cases specifically surrounding that. So you should be against that too, I guess, if that's your principle.
Will be murdered by the state, unjustly killed for a sense of security. I reject that outright.
Yeah, I mean, I think both in terms of efficacy, but even in terms of, I think if you feel that there is a situation wherein, without a threat to anybody, right? I mean, these people are all in jail. There is a justification to kill someone in cold blood. Then I think it just becomes a negotiation as to when it's not.
You know what really gets me too is what I hear from a lot of people is, what about when you know? You've seen on video they're harming a child or they're doing something. And it's funny because in a circumstance where an individual literally witnesses a crime happening, it's easy to say, sure, we can, like if you're out in public and you see someone committing an egregious crime that is going to cause great bodily harm or death. But why does that justify an institutional, national level mechanism by which the government can decide that someone dies? I think it comes down to 12 people walk into a room. Someone they've never met before points to a person they've never met and they say, trust me, kill him. And these people are like, well, I guess. I think that's insanity.
No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, you brought up the Penny thing. And I think that's why it's even that much more egregious, in my opinion, his killing of that man. Because I don't believe in that situation there was any type of threat that justified holding this guy in a chokehold for that many minutes at all, frankly, for that matter.
What do you think, like the penalty should be? Like, do you think, like, they're charging him, I think, with negligent? Is it negligent homicide? I'm not sure.
At the very least, I would imagine manslaughter. But in generally, as a rule, I don't really parse out court cases. I mean, if there's a charge, as a matter of public policy, there are instances where I think that people should be charged.
They're having a conversation around capital punishment in a way where Tim Pool is agreeing with him on principle, but also simultaneously still making it seem like he's disagreeing with him. And that's why it's confusing and it makes no sense. I'm going to skip this.
There are people, I mean, and it put and again,
when do they move on to some other shit?
The guy is physically assaulted. Scott, we knew, in 2019. stuff happens
Because I suspect that like they will then move into like crime panic.
in the subway all the time.
New York's been getting pretty wild. I suppose it's relative to the amount of crime, but
And getting wild in what way?
there were, I think, last year, like 25 people were pushed in front of trains.
I mean, I can tell you that crime in New York City is, down still around historic lows.
Yeah. New York City has one of the most robust, the most robust public transit structure in the United States of America. It's obviously still significantly lower than like our European counterparts or, places like Japan, places like China. But the daily commuter traffic is massive, right? So 25 people being pushed in front of trains is a statistic that comes across as very like emotional and very, it freaks out people. You're like, what the fuck? That's crazy. That's an unacceptable amount of murder. It's like, yeah, of course it is. A single murder is unacceptable. But you have to analyze that within the framework of millions of people commuting every single day. Okay? So when you look at the statistics like that, when you look at the actual statistics, it is such a tiny margin. It is such a tiny margin of people that completely dismantling the public transit structure in an effort to combat this would be absolutely ridiculous. So you still have to look at the actual rates of crime in general. You cannot. This is part of the problem with the media as well and the coverage of this kind of stuff, where the media loves feeding into the crime panic in general, and it personally creates this environment where a lot of people are making false assumptions about the reality. Is Unc gonna hang out for sushi? I told him jokingly, I was like, I jokingly asked him that like a week prior to this, and he's like, I'm not eating anything over there. That's what he said.
I'm old, so I remember New York in the late 80s. And it's
Wow.
It's like
3 years ago. Sorry, I was wrong. Yeah, it was in 2022. I think it was.
Oh, well, I mean, listen,
25
during
people.
COVID, we had a once in a lifetime event, hopefully, knock on wood. And a lot of things got messed up, but crime is back down. The only crime that has gone up, which is fascinating. And for all of the BS that we heard over the past couple of years about, shoplifting and smash and grab and all that, do you know what the one major crime that is up?
Which one?
The most statistically? It's actually shoplifting. Shoplifting went up in 2023, and it is now because it went down during COVID. So as much as we heard, and I know you've talked about this quite a bit, and I think it's been misrepresented in a lot of respects.
I don't think Sam is right on this data, by the way, because overall shoplifting and theft went up in accordance to foot traffic going up. Like the rate was a little bit higher than if it was rate adjusted, it would maybe outperform when foot traffic goes up. When more people are shopping, there's going to be more people shoplifting, right? The one data point that actually went up was homicides, and that was a brief blip.
All of the shoplifting was up, and people are gone mayhem. It's crazy. It was actually below where it was in 2019, and it is now back up to where it was in 2019.
I think,
and because COVID was, screwed up with our society so much. But again, you ask me.
Another aspect of this also is a calculated decision made by the grocery stores themselves, like these chains. Calculated decision to make self-checkout readily accessible, readily available, in an effort to reduce the number of people working the cash registers, in an effort to reduce the number of people that are employed by the grocery store. They know that this will increase shrink. They know that this will cause people to steal stuff, okay? Because when he's saying shoplifting, he's not specifically just talking about like people going in and doing smash and grabs, right? What you see in the media. Because those smash and grabs, while they can be publicized heavily, are not going to make up for billions of dollars. Actually, the people that are stealing are people like you. You know, it's the people that are complaining about shoplifting that every now and then yoink a fucking Snickers bar at the self-checkout and go, yeah, you know, one for me, one for the store type shit, right? Like, that is what is contributing to the overall shrink. And companies know that. They know that if you have self-checkout, people are going to steal some shit. Except the cost for them to employ cashiers and with all their benefits and with all the workplace compensation and all of the other stuff that they have to offer people that they hire, the profit margins still remain high when they automate that process, even if people steal shit. Okay? Just so you understand. So this is something that every grocery store corporate executive knows. This is a reality that they know because they've made this calculation. And what's really interesting about it is that while I can comprehend this by thinking about this logically, and yet these brilliant minds in the media have never really addressed that at all. You know, it's really, really interesting. Self-checkout is what increases shrink. Okay, that's what, and that is happening across the board. It's not just happening in like Oakland, or it's not just happening in like neighborhoods where grocery stores are closing. It's happening all across the board, and they know that it's happening all across the board. They've built that additional shrink into their profit margins. They know that it's going to happen, but it's still significantly cheaper for them to cut their workforce and allow people to steal some, you know?
Why are we going the wrong direction with capital punishment? I would say it is the absolute BS that has been shoveled. I don't watch your show enough to know, although I've seen people on here who, when Emma was on, who promote this idea that there was like this explosion of crime. And in fact, what ends up happening is that, yes, during COVID, there was a spike. And now we're back down. And the only thing that is back at 2019 levels is actually shoplifting, because it had gone down and it's gone back up because we're back to normal.
So I'm trying to pull up the Marshall Project. This is a good one.
What?
So we had these, this was the story that happened, and this is what's a cause for contention. The FBI released crime data showing that crime had gone down. And, during the presidential debates, David Muir fact-checked Donald Trump saying, actually, crime is down. However, recently, the FBI released new crime data showing that actually it was up. It was up, I believe, 4.5.
Wait, what? Hold on 1 second. Let me just fix my screens real quick because I'm having some issues here. Okay. Oh, Sam's going to cook him on this.
When? What year?
The year prior, 2021.
That it was up.
Yeah. So the latest data that we...
Dude, what are you talking about? Crime is down from 2023 to 2024. That's just the truth. David Muir is correct in correcting Donald Trump. You can't just go back and be like, well, FBI found out that the crime was actually up. Yeah, it was up in 2021. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but there's a presidential election happening, which could have clued you in on what year it is, considering that that was in the process of a presidential debate.
But we knew. No, it was actually 2022. We knew. We knew. Yeah, it was 2020.
I'm sorry, the increase from 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah,
during COVID. In the wake of COVID, 2022 was up because the data reporting was not complete. But if you look at 2023 data, which is now they have got enough of the police departments online that 94 point, I don't know, something of the country is covered, you will find that crime is down in 2023.
So do you think, I think one of the issues...
We had a rise because of COVID, and now it's dropping back down. But again, let's also be clear on this. If you compare 1990 crime with today, it's basically like this. It's just straight down on that.
You want to know something interesting? You know what one of the biggest factors in the decline in murder is? Cell phones. So back in the day, in the 90s, if somebody got stabbed, somebody had to run to a payphone to try and call 911, and that created a massive gap between first response and medical treatment. And so around the time cell phones came out, you see a massive drop in murder charges and homicides. People immediately started thinking wow, crime is down. And it's well, no, look at the crime data. It is down. It is going down. but it's not the same. There's a decline in crime and a sharp decline in murder because now people were instantly calling 911 and first responders were arriving on scene much more quickly. So that's
okay. But also the other part was, yeah, I mean, that's interesting.
Crime's been going down.
Crime has been going down. I mean, there's a lot of theories about it. I happen to think it's a function of lead, to be honest with you.
I agree. Lead and gasoline.
Lead and gasoline and lead regulation. It's another example of strong government regulation bringing about benefits that we couldn't even imagine.
I agree. What do you think? I don't understand the mechanism by which lead made crime happen. I saw the reports though, where
I mean, lead is a neurotoxin, and if you have brain damage, you're more likely to be.
That is the sad state of affairs, is that, like, yes, a big chunk of our Gen Xers are just straightforwardly brain damaged. It's kind of a wild reality to reckon with, but yeah, a lot of our boomers, but specifically Gen X, is the lead generation, is the lead poison generation. And yeah, it is perhaps one of the major reasons as to why they are so incredibly violent. Yeah. This is probably one of the most resilient theories I've ever seen on the matter, in terms of like why there was such historic highs in crime, and how we have basically reached historic lows in crime. Like, the lead theory is like I don't think it's like a crazy conspiracy, is what I'm saying. I don't,
maybe violent or antisocial.
That's crazy. Like in the 70s, when we had leaded gasoline and it's just pumping out of all these cars, people are effectively having some kind of effect on their brain that
it aggregates. And so if you are living in areas that had a lot of lead paint, hadn't been remediated, and on top of that, you're getting gasoline that's in the air, or I should say lead that is, in the air because of gas, that accumulates in your brain. And it creates neurotoxin. That's why we have that problem in Flint, Michigan,
right,
with the lead poisoning. We have a lot of children, who have special needs, and there is data. I mean, this is, it's very difficult to assess this stuff, but there's data that shows that about 20 years after lead gasoline is outlawed, or lead in gasoline is outlawed, you see a precipitous drop in crime that's happened both internationally and in this country.
What do you think about phthalates? Are you familiar?
No.
So plastic chemicals leaching into our food.
Oh, yeah.
Even these cans. So I'm going to give a shout out to Liquid Death. They'll get mad at me, I guess. So Liquid Death is water in cans, and it says death to plastic. But every single aluminum can is lined with plastic. So it's all leaching into our, even these midriffs. They say they're endocrine disruptors. So they're affecting people's hormone regulation, hormone balance. This could lead to, depending on the study, hormone imbalance could lead to like emotional disturbances or dissociative.
This part I don't understand, because I love drinking just cans. I love slamming Diet Cokes all day, every day. And I also happen to pay close attention to my testosterone levels. Like, I have a pretty healthy, relatively balanced diet on top of that. And I just don't know. Like, I feel like if there was someone who would get hit with the microplastics, make you gay shit, which is what like his underlying theory is here, like, I'd be the number one person who is homified, because I'm not even at this point. I'm mostly macroplastic. I've moved beyond microplastic,
or like identity issues.
This is one of the reasons why. I mean, since we are a couple of days away from an election,
I'm such a soda boy.
I think it's so important to make sure that Donald Trump is not in a position to appoint any more Supreme Court justices. I mean, the damage has been done, but it could be rectified, because one of the things that this Supreme Court has done in its assault on what is known as the Chevron doctrine, and deference, is it will over time inhibit the ability of something like the EPA or the USDA or the FDA from assessing in real time that there is a problem with certain products that is poisoning our environment or poisoning our people, and it will inhibit their ability to address it, because we don't know in the future, and certainly if, what chemicals, we discovered this over time, right? We didn't know this when plastics are fantastic. And then we start to realize there's these PFAS, there's these things that you mentioned, maybe in the context of fracking, there are certain things leaching into water, but you probably know that you can't just there's no, I test water and then all the bad stuff comes back on the test sheet. You must look for specific things. Well, what this Supreme Court has done is inhibited, and this actually is even a problem for investors like the SEC and other agencies. They have inhibited the ability of these agencies to do their work as scientists, as financial regulators, find problems that exist that were not contemplated by Congress and act upon them. Because Congress doesn't have the ability, to act on every single or anticipate every single substance that may be a problem for people, or
high fructose corn syrup.
I mean, that's also a problem. That was under the Nixon administration. They decided they wanted to increase the amount of money that expendable money that people had, so they decided to subsidize corn and make all the food cheaper. But
isn't it weird how the high fructose corn syrup things happens? They subsidize corn, so then these researchers are like, corn's so cheap now because it's being paid for by the government, by taxpayers, that we can produce. It's actually difficult to make high fructose corn syrup. It's more expensive than sugar, but the government subsidy has resulted in
100%. It's also the filler in all our foods.
Yeah. I was reading something recently that said that the high colon cancer rate among young people is due to emulsifiers. They're using
This looks like Tim Pool receiving an entry-level college class. Yeah. It is not as contentious as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I still appreciate it. I think it's good for Tim Pool's audience to have a better, wait for it. Okay. All I'm saying is it's good for Tim Pool's audience to get an introduction to someone like Samuel Seder in a non-adversarial setting like this, because they'll learn some shit, hopefully.
Gellan gum and guar gum and these things in dairy products. So, or not even just dairy products, but to make it seem like it's fatty. And so you're actually just eating this gum stuff that gunks up your insides. I don't know how you appropriately regulate or deal with things like that, because it's like you're saying, we don't know what it's going to do until we have all this data and research for a long period of time.
I mean, we could regulate against it. I wasn't quite a
Tim is like, look at us. Isn't this world crazy? Yeah, he is doing that.
Fan of Michael Bloomberg, but one of the things he did was, I think it was during the Bloomberg administration, there were polysaturated fats, I think it was, that were outlawed in New York City. I think that's become the norm around the country. Even you couldn't buy a 40-ounce soda.
That was kind of weird.
Not really, because it's the same principle, right? I mean, the fact is that and the pushback from conservatives in this was so ridiculous, because look, I can't go buy a pony version of a beer. I don't want a 12-ounce beer.
It's not illegal.
I want but I can't. It's not available to me. I mean, the size distribution, what difference does it make? At the end of the day.
Right, well, it's true, because people just bought 2 sodas.
It is.
Speak for yourself, brother. You better not be advocating to make my beer gay. I want multiple beers. I need to slam them back.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy 2 sodas, at least you're trying to basically, you're not. You're not outlawing sodas or whatnot, but you're trying to encourage less cost, essentially, for society, right? Because more people get diabetes, that ends up costing society more. I mean, so there's a lot of value to regulation. Look, we saw this in the context of light bulbs. The light technology we have in here, right? All these LEDs. It's a lot cooler in here than it would be if we had the old-timey lights.
Oh, they'd burn out too.
The LEDs don't. They're cheaper. It took a couple of years before you got the technology was better. But maybe you remember this, but the outrage conservatives over the light bulbs. You know, and we hear Trump talk about this too with the toilets and whatnot. Incidentally, I'm very sorry. You have a very fancy toilet. And you have a very fancy toilet.
Oh my God. He dumped in there. He dumped it. Yo, that's crazy. He did not just dump. He did not dump in Tim Pool. That is an act of resistance right there.
Apologized.
Well, it wouldn't flush.
You got to, yeah, because it's a fancy toilet. It's trying to save water. We try, man. So
no, I appreciate that.
But you end up having to press it several times, and then
it didn't work for me.
Should we just get the regular one? The regular?
I don't know what you should do, but maybe I'll call the authorities because
Well, I mean, but that's kind of an issue.
That's insane. That is an insane thing to say. He's like, you should call the authorities because I left a big one in there.
Right. We have
some shit I would say. It's funny hearing Sam Seder say that.
This like high-end eco toilet will.
Well, it's a bidet and it's fantastic. I really enjoyed that part of it. It's just,
yeah, bidets are the
but
best.
It won't flush.
It didn't flush.
Yeah, people keep asking like, I don't understand. I'm like, you got to press it like 3 times because it has like a sensor.
I pressed it like 5.
So I mean, this kind of feels like an example. So we agree. We want to reduce excess waste. We want to reduce overuse waste in general. Like we don't want to produce waste. We want to not waste things like fresh water. But now we have a toilet that requires 5 flushes because we tried doing the right thing.
Well, I mean, look, you just bought the wrong toilet. I mean, I
one downstairs didn't have the
I have
problem.
low flow. You can find low flow, manual toilets. I mean, that's a high end toilet.
This conversation is getting derailed.
But, I mean, the bottom line is all of these. There are definitely regulations. Nobody's forcing you to buy that toilet, but there are definitely regulations that we find over time are not as effective as we thought. But the bottom line is all of this deregulation that we're seeing is a function of largely certainly of conservatives, but largely a function of the Republican Party. And now we see, for me, Kamala Harris would not be the first person that I would vote for. But in terms of the Supreme Court, that alone is enough for me.
How do we balance
and federal courts? I would say too broadly. I mean,
how do we balance this? Right. So there's a push and pull between private and public. There are, I've never been a laissez-faire libertarian guy. I've never heard a good argument from a libertarian about how you protect water. I've often brought up the Clean Water Restoration Act. Are you familiar?
A little bit.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just I think it was the 70s. I'm not sure if it was the Cuyahoga River.
It was the Cuyahoga River in Ohio that was on fire, and that's where we got the EPA from.
Right. And people were like, why is this? And what ends up happening is all of these corporations say, don't look at me. I only did a little bit. And it's like, well, yeah, but literally everybody doing a little bit is an avalanche.
Yes, of course.
And I've never heard a good answer for how you deal with something like that. Just claiming someone owns the river changes nothing.
No, of course it doesn't. I mean, I've had many, many debates. People can.
So what we've learned so far is that Tim Pool is, 1, a steady opponent of capital punishment, and 2, is an environmentalist. 39 minutes in, and the entire conversation has been Tim Pool agreeing with Sam that capital punishment is unconscionable, and that 2, we really have to do climate change initiatives. We really should not have gutted the EPA. It seems like Tim Pool is voting for maybe not even Kamala Harris out of the anger that he has towards Kamala Harris's lackluster approach to climate change initiatives. Is that what's going on? Am I hearing this correctly? This seems very different than the Trump will win every state by a landslide Tim Pool from 2020. Tim Pool is a PSL pilled, it seems.
Look on my channel for my debates with libertarians, and at one point it all just turns into ridiculous mush with libertarians. And look, there's the idea that you are either pro-regulation or anti-regulation. To be anti-regulation is, in my estimation, absurd. But that doesn't mean that you don't look at each regulation and make an assessment as to whether it's functioning or not. There's a lot of local regulations that I think are unhelpful at times. I'm sure on a federal level there are some regulations that are unhelpful. But the bottom line is, fundamentally,
this kind of stuff annoys me though, because it's like guys like this who are otherwise like amoral, who are otherwise like valueless can so quickly behave like a chameleon in any sort of conversation, you know, and they can suit. They can basically change their entire worldview just for the sake of that conversation, and then just go back to the regular bullshit. And I don't know. I find it a little bit aggravating. I find it a little bit annoying. There are a lot of people who are there are a lot of people I see, like Tim Pool is a propagandist for sure. Obviously he's a right-wing guy, but there's even people in like the debate space, for example, that will, that are very clearly not motivated by empathy and don't have a world view that revolves around like doing no harm or minimizing harm, anything like that. And they can just like in these, depending on who their opponent is, they can turn around and just, you know, argue on the exact opposite sides of a position. They're like debate mercenaries, basically. And I don't think their audience has punished them enough for it anyway. Like, I don't think people will punish. That's why D is on his pro-Palestine arc right now and debating Zionists and blaming you for affecting the movement for worse. I like that his entire worldview is just motivated by whatever, like being at odds with me, no matter what it is. Yeah, he's the true advocate for the Palestinian cause after advocating to genocide them and continuing to defend that genocide for a year of said genocide. And now he's going to be the true champion of the pro-Palestinian cause, and be like, Hassan is the bad guy. I don't believe that he is actually flipped. This chatter keeps saying he is, or this chatter keeps saying he has flipped, but good luck, you know? Like I said, if you came out pro-Israel on October 7th, he would have been pro-Palestine, probably. But that is precisely what I'm talking about. That is actually what I'm talking about, which is that like a lot of these people just have like an enemy that they've designated. Like with Destiny, it's obvious. With Destiny, it's obvious. It's like he has tailored a lot of his content and a lot of his ideology around like being in opposition to me. So anything that drives a wedge, he will try to utilize, which is very strange. But one thing that is clear is that, yes, he has no consistent set of principles or values, but he is rhetorically skilled enough to be able to, I guess, dupe people, especially in like short bursts, when something is like clipped in a TikTok debate format or whatever. People to be like, yeah, this is this guy seems to be on my team or whatever. And most people don't interrogate or examine the full scope of their knowledge or their opinions or their advocacy. But that's pretty much it. Is it successful? Are you noticing more hate or not? Not really. I don't think it's that strange because he's definitely getting bred of that tactic. I know, but I think ultimately it doesn't really matter. Let's continue.
Do you allow the government to have this ability to regulate? The idea that we have that it inhibits the free market in some way. I think the idea of a free market is absurd, doesn't exist. But beyond that, we're always regulating the market. It's just a question for whose benefit are we regulating it? That's the bottom line.
I think free markets can only exist temporarily until someone amasses power and then displaces the market and becomes the power structure.
There is no, like, what is a free market?
It would be like 10 people who live 10 miles from each other, they trade periodically. But once you get to a point where anyone controls one resource, you start to get power displacement, and then you'll end up with power centralizing.
Yes, well, the first thing that you're talking about, hasn't existed in
forever.
Yeah, forever. I mean, really.
But if he's saying anything pro-Palestine, it's because the tides have turned so much further than they ever were, and it's more beneficial from a standpoint to ride both sides now. Yeah, that's probably what it is. But good luck to him. I hope that he finds peace one day and stops relentlessly trying to smear me with his maybe 3,000 cultish freaks that are in here probably every single day, more than they even watch him. The reality of the matter is it'll never happen because he makes money off of that.
But it's like, I talk about this with left libertarianism because a lot of people on the right say it doesn't exist. And I'm like, it absolutely does. It's hippies living on a farm. You know what I mean? That's left libertarianism. They're just hippies on a farm. There's no There's no need for great power structures or police because 10 people living on a farm get along just fine.
Yeah,
scaling things up is where...
but you know, and maybe they're completely self-sufficient, but you know, they got there in some fashion, and it wasn't they you know, they drove on roads that were built
Right.
by a society, you know. So.
It is funny because I always hear libertarians say that it's a meme who's going to build the roads, and I never actually get a response.
Well,
Like private
you could
companies,
find private companies that are going to build roads, but they're
as
they're
they
not gonna-
do.
Yes, but they're not going to build.
The trap card. Never tell a deregulation, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian slanted guy how roads are built. Okay? Never tell them that. You'll destroy their worldview. Okay? It's pretty funny that this ideology has existed for so long, and yet they have seemingly not come across like a coherent way to get around the initial infrastructure expenditure necessary. Like they say toll roads and whatnot, but there's still a massive amount of expenditure that you need to put down before you get to that process. And it's like virtually impossible. It is virtually impossible to do that with simple tolls. So it's pretty funny. Sam is taking calls from any libertarian who will speak with him to debate on the subject, and they've all been destroyed so badly that none even bother to call anymore. Yeah, I will never understand like how this genuine issue is presented to libertarians on a regular basis, and they never have an answer for it. Like I've yet to hear a coherent counter argument to a concept as simple as fucking roads. Like there are varying degrees of anarchist thought on this matter. You have minarchists who believe in like small government because you still need to have a court structure, right? To enforce contracts. That's another fun argument that I'm sure Sam engages with all the time. But it's just, yeah, you bring up the court system, you bring up the enforcement of the court system, and all of a sudden, bedlam. No coherent, reasonable counter argument to either of these things where you're like, okay, so you want a minimal government, you want a court structure, who's going to do the contract enforcement? Batistas have roads, CNT had roads, the anarchists in Manchuria had roads though. Yeah, that's different. We're talking about anarcho-capitalists. It is like one is the abolition of hierarchy and the democratization of all matter, all aspects of governance. The other is only unjustifiable hierarchies where might is right and money plays a significantly larger role, where there is no, there is no structure at all. There's no enforcement at all.
Build it to everywhere, like out here,
we had to build this road.
Well, you built the road, not the paved one.
The no, the one that goes onto the property, we had to build.
You're not
Well, yes,
fooling
of course,
libertarians by
but,
bringing up the
but,
bitch-ass roads. Libertarians, which tend to be smarter people, you somehow think that the thing that's gonna stump us and be like, damn, fuck this libertarian shit, is the motherfucking roads. This is level 1 shit. You not fooling now libertarian by bringing up them bitch-ass roads.
So what's the, like, who builds it? What are you going to do? You're just going to pave it yourself, like Tim Pool said? Because roads are, at the end of the day, a circuit. They have to connect. Railroads are private corporations for what it's worth. Yeah. And that process has been fantastic. Also, once again, tremendous amount of government expenditure on that as well. Heavily regulated, would be significantly more efficient if nationalized. Still requires, there is no massive infrastructure project. There is no massive infrastructure project like that was not built with government interference. Okay? Roads are built by the government and then given to private contractors. Railroads, still similar structure.
Fuck them hoe ass roads, man.
The paved one gives you the opportunity to, that's the way you get to the airport.
Yeah. So I guess the point about regulation is I certainly agree. It's like Republicans across the board are almost always talking about deregulation. But
Yeah, it's absurd.
But I don't see Democrats talking about cleaning regulation either. Right? There's a give and take.
What?
Let me give you a better example.
What does cleaning regulation mean?
Getting rid of the bad ones.
Oh my God. I mean, I
Or
would
like
say so
reforming.
to an excessive standpoint. I mean, this is, and I'm not speaking positively of this, but that guy Cass Sunstein underneath under the Obama administration, it was absurd. The idea, look, I don't think you ever have to worry about the Democrats putting.
I agree with you almost 100% on everything. But just as a devil's advocate, how does this line of thinking apply to NASA versus SpaceX in terms of success and efficiency of systems? I'd assume it's not a public versus private perfect example, but yeah, curious of your thoughts. Yeah, that's actually a wonderful question. SpaceX is NASA. You're doing the railroad argument again. It's the government building it and then government building the underlying infrastructure and handing the keys to a private corporation and then still continuously funding that private corporation. That is, SpaceX is funded by the government. It's comprised almost entirely of former JPL NASA engineers. Major issue with the major argument against this in terms of like aerospace manufacturing and technological achievements that occur in the field of aerospace is that when it's funded by the government gets to say, because it might be, politically sound, spending too much money on this shit. Okay? When it's at least a private contractor, they can give the same amount of money, if not more money, okay? But it's hidden as it's written off as an expenditure that isn't cut because we have no mechanism of saying we got to lower the amount of subsidies that we're offering to private corporations because the private-public partnership is the method in the United States of America. That is the saddest aspect of this. These massive technological improvements that have been life-changing have almost always come from the public sector because massive technological leaps require endless amount of failure. Private corporations have short-term profit motives. Therefore, they do not have a lot of room for failure. They do not have a lot of room to just like burn endless amounts of money in an effort to get to a certain point necessary. The internet would have never been created under a private structure. It just simply would not happen. And the same is true for novel chemical compound discovery, for example. Like virtually every single novel chemical compound discovery happens in public research. Okay? Other countries that have more robust public research facilities and spend less money actually are per capita creating creating more novel chemical compounds than the United States of America. There's a reason for that. It's because failure is not viewed in the same way in the public sector as it is in the private one. Failure is a necessary part of scientific discovery. There are many examples of this in every field. What the fuck is a novel chemical compound? Medicine? Yes.
Too much regulation on things because to a certain extent there's still elements within that party and hopefully it's getting drummed out.
Well, guns is a good issue on overregulation.
Neoliberalism. Guns are
overregulated in ways that don't quite make sense, right? So that's an example of, for instance, semantic definitions of high capacity and standard capacity, what those even mean. But more importantly, a specific example would be in Maryland, they've banned the M1A. But the SCAR 20S is legal, despite the fact, and there's no legal, there's no reason for it other than Democrats just decided we will start regulating these things because it sounds good on paper.
Well, I think that probably the reason is that we have a court that decided.
Reporting from Tim's chat, libertarians literally have answers to every single thing you said. You just don't listen. I mean, I have listened. Toll roads is not an accurate, adequate counter, and court enforcement still needs to be maintained by a state. So if you leave that up to private corporations, the results are not going to be good. a lot of libertarians who work regular 9-to-5 jobs, who fantasize about one day becoming like crypto billionaires or whatever, don't recognize that if you're a serf under this current structure, more deregulation is not going to magically make you a slave owner, a slave master. It's going to make you a slave. But a lot of people think falsely that like, yeah, I'm actually in a shitty situation right now, but in a structure where there's more exploitation and less safeguards, I'll actually thrive. It's like, no, you won't. The very same people that dominate your lives will be able to dominate them even more. Going to be the board of executives at Coca-Cola that make these decisions, as they do currently within the confines of a state structure.
In 2008, after almost 200 years in this country of not perceiving an individual right to carry a gun, but only in the context of
The idea that libertarianism involves CP or getting rid of driver's licenses, the age of consent are just stereotypes. It's interesting that they're just stereotypes, even though it seems to be the only things that they advocate for in their own conferences. Like, Tim Pool is not a libertarian. Is Rothbard not a libertarian? Libertarianism simply means you have the freedom to do whatever you want as long as your actions don't harm others. Okay. Deregulation does not mean no regulation. Limited government does not mean no government. I feel like you're at odds with some of your fellow libertarians, at least the most public-facing ones, whether they are in academia or ones that are publicly advocating for these positions. Every single libertarian is like, this other guy isn't a real libertarian. He's fake and gay. Yeah.
being a well-regulated militia, that because the court has lurched so far to the right over the past 2 decades, particularly most recently, that I think the idea is that you chip away at this from a legal perspective to try and build a legal precedent by doing, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not familiar with that specific regulation, but I would imagine that's the idea. We're going to get as much regulation as we can in this. I don't know.
Side note, please go back to your previous lighting setup. It was better somehow. I disagree. I think Chad will disagree with you as well. I think Chad likes this new lighting setup a lot more. It makes the camera quality a lot better. Like, the camera literally looks better. It's lit better.
Like, what's the damage done by that? Maybe from the perspective.
Made people felons who have like an archaic, it's unfair to call it archaic, I guess, but like the M1 Garand is like a Vietnam weapon, and the M1A is a more modern version, but it's like a wood stock, and it's got like it's a 308. The Scar 20S is a modern AR-15 style variant, which is substantially more efficient.
Well, I am definitely in favor of outlawing, you know, all of them, if that makes it easier.
Every single one.
Well, I listen. I think that people. I have no problem with people using weapons that are specifically for hunting. You know, that's I'm okay with that. But
see how I segued into guns now?
Well, I'm happy to. You know, I mean, it's absurd. I think.
It's a bit of a forced segue.
But you know, the Supreme Court has lurched to the right, and we have
agree.
2 Supreme Court justices on the right who I think want to retire in Alito and in Clarence Thomas. And I would love Donald Trump not to have the opportunity to appoint their successors.
I don't want to go too, I want to stay on the guns for a bit, but it's the signs pointing to a Trump victory. It doesn't mean he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to win.
Didn't you tell me we were driving up and somebody asked me if I'd been on your show before. And I said, yeah, I don't know what show it was because you got so many. But
it was actually this channel.
Okay.
That was like 7 years ago.
And nobody can find that interview, but I'm quite convinced that you also predicted a Trump victory then. And that must have been like, it was pre-COVID.
Well, this was like 2017, 2018.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure it was.
I mean, I am unclear as to who's going to win this election. You know,
nobody knows.
I see positive signs for Harris, but I can't tell if that's, you know, me being aspirational or not. So,
well, I would certainly say I learned my lesson with 2020, right? So I'm
Damn! Wait, no way. Yo, he did not just say that. Bro said 50 states landslide. No, did he say 49 state? I don't want to get it wrong. Bro said 49 state landslide for Trump, dude. What was the one state that loses? What was the one godless commie freak state? Was it California? No, I don't even think it was California. I think it was like it was like Colorado or something, or Vermont that was going to stay Democrat.
I'm looking at, for instance, Moody's Analytics, and they always release this economic report where they're like, here's our projections.
I gotta
and they
pee.
tout how it's historically accurate. And then what I think I saw was there was an increase in support for Trump. And what I thought I was calling out accurately was an increase in opposition to Trump, but the opposition certainly was greater. But I think the biggest function of 2020 was Republicans just don't know how to win elections. That's why I think the last Republican to win a popular vote was it Reagan? I think.
Well, Bush in his second election did, but he did that by basically coming out and bashing gay people and driving out
war.
Well, no, I think that was actually despite the fact. I mean, in the wake of 9/11, there was a lot of intimidation by the Republicans, and they attacked a lot of Democrats for being, Max Cleland, who lost both his arms and his legs or an arm and two of his legs, I think it was. He was running for re-election in Georgia, and they called him Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? Hillary Clinton had a 95% chance of winning, and the 5% came in. So I don't. But let's get back to. I'm going to ask you about the Supreme Court, because it sounds like you have a problem with how their right would shift. Is that right?
The first challenge is like right and left mean different things in different areas of governance and culture and things like this. So it's when we talk about right.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of the Supreme Court, in the context of what a Supreme Court does. I mean, they don't dictate culture so much as they dictate law.
No, what I mean is, like you say, rightward shift, and defining what right and left are in different contexts, I think, matters, because if we say,
in the context of the Supreme Court, rightward shift would be one which
traditionalist, I would say, versus progressive. That's what I'm trying to draw the distinction on, because like right economic is
That's perhaps the most insane thing that Tim Pool has ever said on his broadcast. And there is a litany of insane things that he has said. He is known to say. The Supreme Court is directly at odds with the overwhelming majority of the public. They are so right-wing, they basically said that American corporations can hire child slaves, okay? And that no such financial restitution can occur, even if said child slaves grow up and then, launch a legal case against these corporations, as long as they are done by third-party contractors that hire out the help. Also, they just talked about the Chevron deference, and Tim agreed with Sam, I thought. They are anti-union, anti-labor rights. They're anti-cleaning. They're anti-enforcement. It's ridiculous.
Economics?
So right economics to imply more like laissez-faire capitalism versus...
oh my God, they're completely attacking the government's ability to...
Like, the Supreme Court is so right-wing that liberal justices are also often very right-wing in the decision-making when it comes to economic issues.
regulate. They're completely attacking the government, disempowering the government is basically saying, like, I mean, government is always.
That's not laissez-faire, right?
It is almost definitionally laissez-faire, yeah.
Well, no, like allowing large corporations to have revolving door policies and protections for large corporations is not
revolving door policies? What is that? What do you mean?
Like when, like the CEO of Halliburton gets a job in government or something like this, right?
Well,
when there's an exchange between the government.
Laissez-faire is where you basically I mean...
yeah, buyer
I think
beware,
it's a smokes. No, that's caveat emptor.
I know. That's why I'm insulting it.
Laissez-faire is where essentially, and I think it's a little bit of a smokescreen, but laissez-faire specifically means you're the government completely.
It literally means hands free. Like what? What does Tim think? What does Tim think that means?
Backs off and does not intervene in
right.
what's going on.
And what I'm saying is I think many of these powerful elites that we would describe as right are in favor of protections for their buddies and their billionaires.
Well, the reality of neoliberalism as it coming out of Mont Pelerin and the society, it was ultimately about a protection racket.
Hands-free means something else. Hands off. Let it be. That's what it is. Or let
for
do.
a specific industry or a specific players within an industry.
But fair point. More right word than like relative to where we are. Yes, completely agree.
No, it's just it's almost definitionally right.
Right word shift. Yeah, I think I was pulling hairs. You know.
Well,
but anyway, so I agree to a certain extent. I'm fairly modern on a lot of issues. I think there's got to be some push and pull. I think I'd like to see a Democratic Party.
This is my number one theory. This is more than like my nuclear doctrine. Okay, you need to understand this. This is something that I genuinely believe. It's something that I talk about all the time. I've noticed the majority of conservatives are the way they are because they don't understand basic definitions. Yes, so much of the liberals do it too. Yes, liberals are also conservative. So there are, or I'll have a lot of conservative associations or conservative leanings on certain issues. But yes, specifically modern American conservatism unironically revolves around just not knowing basic facts about most issues. Okay? It is an ideology that is built around ignorance and having no adequate puzzle pieces to like logically comprehend what is happening, and instead making up your own mind about how things are the way they are or why things are the way they are. That's all this is. It's entirely vibes based. It has it lacks facts, and that most of the conservative arguments that are presented, regardless of how intellectualized they may seem, can be dismantled with some pretty basic entry level facts. This is precisely the reason why when Ben Shapiro, who I would say is probably one of the best conservative speakers, like one of the most like intellectually presenting conservative speakers, was actively dismantled by 25 woke college students because they were, you know, they were very knowledgeable on some of these key facts. That's it. That's it. Like, I'm reminded of the conversation that Mason had with Ben, right? Our GOAT, our warrior, our Jubilee warrior, one hand politics, where he basically was like, don't you think that the incredibly restrictive immigration process that makes it so that the average processing time for like legal pathways of migration into this country are 10 years or more makes it so that many people choose to cut the line or use illegal means to get in? But they weren't college students. Yeah, I know. I'm just sorry. Woke people, okay? Don't get caught up on that. Some of them were college students, others were not. But like that's it. And Ben had no answer for that. That is just like entry level reality shit, right? If you are even a little bit intellectually curious about the matter, you look into it and you're like, well, it does seem like the legal pathways of citizenship are just so unimaginably restrictive that this probably increases illegal pathways of migration for a lot of people that are seeking asylum or, you know, escaping dire circumstances back home. And if there was a legal pathway, that most people would just go through the legal means.
That provides sound regulation in key areas that matter, like we're talking about lead and water and things like this. And then I'd like to see actually any party, I don't care who does it, like it's a sound reason to be like, hey, don't dump lead and garbage in our water. But at the same time, it's also to say, hey, we should reassess what we blocked and why we blocked it. Then maybe there's some regulations.
What specifically are you talking about?
Like certain things to be deregulated.
Like what?
So the M1A, for instance, right? So I brought it to guns. My point is just in general.
What's the what?
It's a specific example of where Democrats have regulated firearms in a way that makes literally no sense.
Okay, it makes no
Doesn't do
sense.
anything.
What's the downside here?
Making people felons for owning something while
How
allowing.
many of those people have been made felons by owning a
10,000? I don't know more.
10,000 felons? There are 10,000 felons in, when was this, in Maryland?
You mean convicted?
No, you said felon. I'm just asking.
Right. So I'll give you an example. The pistol brace ruling, right? So when the courts ruled that pistol braces made a pistol a short-barreled rifle, I actually had to dismantle a bunch of my weapons and separate. And there was no law passed. There was no act of Congress.
That's some pussy shit, Tim. You should have been fucking defending your freedom from the ATF, brother.
Was ATF making an arbitrary decision that I was now committing felonies for simply having owned a legal product that I bought that was legal at the time. And Congress never passed this law. So now I risk prison over a nonsensical regulation.
You were talking about Democrats and
overregulating things.
Overregulating, but you just said that this was not a law that was passed. It was an assessment made by the courts.
No, it wasn't by the courts. It was the ATF, arbitrarily.
And have
this is the Chevron ruling, that the agencies have a right to self-regulate and make their determinations. So the ATF, this is partly why people on the right were celebrating this, because the ATF was arbitrarily deciding that it was now a crime without any act of Congress. So we had to actually, I had to go
so
dismantle.
aside from these instances with you don't like some of these gun regulations, what other regulations do you have a problem with?
I don't know. I mean, there are certain things that I want to be regulated more than I think.
I think this is a really funny conversation to be having with respect to the ATF, because like the pistol brace ban is not in effect. I think this is the one area that like Sam is not super knowledgeable on, which is why Tim can come across like he knows what the fuck he's talking about, because the court struck it down, claiming it to be arbitrary, and that yes, Sam has already conceded that there are oftentimes like arbitrary restrictions that are implemented by the regulatory agencies, and that is a problem. Like, I don't think that you need to be a gun pervert in general, but you know, this is the one area where like even the most basic Republican can just kind of cook up liberals and people on the left, because they are such insane gun perverts that they know all of the most annoying fucking rules and restrictions. Like, I know this from living in the state of California, right? Like, California has had a pistol brace restriction, or a pistol brace restriction in perpetuity. It's like kind of fucking annoying. That's why a lot of the like assault weapons, like AR platform and the like, have that like really annoying way of holding it. Like, you can't grip it. And there are like silly regulations. There are silly regulations surrounding guns in different states. Having said that, however, I think that what is like the reason why these agencies do like patchwork solutions in general, and states do patchwork solutions in general, is because of the endless amount of paperwork that organizations like the NRA and other like gun freedom organizations launch against each individual state, and they stop any kind of like common sense legislation at the federal level, and that we can never actually have like decent gun control. So most of this stuff is just like patchwork solutions that are easy to get around with loopholes. I think it's like it's a really stupid situation. Haas confirmed, closet gun pervert. No, pistol grip is different than the pistol brace he's crying about. He wants an SBR. Yeah, it's like a mini version. I'm a stupid leftist California gun pervert, so I know the details. A lot of these laws, especially in California, are performative, so politics can say they pass gun control laws. Yeah, except I also do think that California, there's a reason why the state of California has significantly lower levels of gun violence than the national average, because gun control legislation, stupid or not, might actually end up, harming, might actually hurt the feelings or make it more annoying for people who enjoy shooting weapons. But the reality is, no, there are definitely performative ones. You're wrong. There are definitely performative gun control legislation. Like, I just gave you an example. I gave you an example of performative gun control legislation, like not being able to, like not having a pistol grip on an assault weapon is like literally one of those examples. The problem is the most effective way, your stream is shadow banned? No, it's not. No, we have political discourse tags now, and no, I am not shadow banned. I'm the fourth largest stream on the platform right now. That'd be crazy to consider that being shadow banned. If you're fighting with anything but a blade, you aren't a warrior. Facts. True. Doors open.
Think about in terms of
Like what?
deregulation. The lead in the water pipes is the easiest example.
Lead is actually
And why isn't it being enforced is the question, I suppose. But
Well,
also,
it is being enforced. I mean, the
there-
problem at what
how
happened
about uranium too?
what happened in
Just so you know, your stream doesn't show on my Alexa Echo show anymore. It used to show as soon as I went on Twitch. Now I have to put in the URL. I mean, it's seemingly hasn't been successful, the shadow banning. Maybe.
in Michigan was that you had a Republican governor who wanted to basically disempower a
You don't show up in just chatting and I mean, we can test this very quickly. Let's see. Twitch.tv/directory all in incognito. Recommended for you. Views high to low. Boom. I'm right there. Let's do, how do we do categories? Just chatting. Recommended for you. High to low. Boom. Right there. Recommended for you. I don't show up. I'm not recommended. That might be because, Twitch does not recommend me. That's understandable. It is interesting, however, that Asmongold's commentary also revolves around politics, but he's at the top of the recommended board. But I guess his type of politics is considered more permissible and not as political. Like he probably doesn't get hit with the politics tag, but it's all good. I'm going to talk about the Trump Epstein tapes in a second. Yes, after this. Hassan, you literally do politics 10 hours a day? Yeah, I know. I'm not. Shadow ban equals not showing up and recommended. It's fine, I think.
a city that was, frankly, largely African American city, and
I think gambling should be regulated. I am no fan of the deregulation. I think what we're
but I'm specifically, I get that you have some issue with some like very marginal
phthalates
gun
should
stuff.
be regulated.
But what should not be regulated? Like you said that.
Yeah, your existing cloud is what's getting people to click on your stream. All these people on here probably know you or of you, but getting newer viewers from Twitch might be harder now. It's fine. It is what it is. Even during a shadow ban, you're getting the same amount of viewers as you always do. Who cares? Doesn't matter at all. You show up and recommend it on incognito, just way down. Yeah. Discoverability on Twitch has always been a massive issue. I don't think there is like an active shadow banning though. What will you do if politics is banned off Twitch? I don't think politics will get banned off Twitch, but I'll go somewhere else. Not being recommended as much because you're tagged as politics does not equal a shadow ban amount. I agree. Holy shit. Did an anonymous user gift 100 gifted subs? What the fuck? Yeah, I think I'll be fine, chat. I think we're good, boys. Law tip, dink doink. Another instance of conservatives not knowing how things work. All regulatory agencies must be created by an act of Congress. Congress cedes its power to these regulatory agencies when they create them via statute. Straight out of the Constitution. This is why the Looper Bright is so brain dead. This is why the Loper Bright is so brain dead, because the entire point of these agencies is to take the load off of Congress and actually tackle the issues. 8 feet art. Thank you for the 100 gifted subs. God damn.
You have a problem with what Democrats are doing in terms of regulation.
As long as I got my Oilers, dude. As long as I got my Oilers and my subscribers, we'll be fine, I think.
Curious as to
I think that's an overestimation. I think that I would.
And
I would like to
Xylax
see
with another gifted.
regulations
Holy
reassessed,
shit.
and then
But which ones? What are you talking about?
I'm saying we should have a review of regulation in general.
So you think we should review every single regulation that exists?
I think they should have sunset clauses.
Why?
Well, because nothing's infinite, nothing's absolute. You know, we might say, for instance, okay, I'll give you an example of regulation.
Lead's always going to be bad for people.
Yes.
So that one we wouldn't sunset, right?
Agreed.
Monty G, thank you for the 5 gifted.
We're talking about if we apply a regulation to a specific body or something, a body of water, perhaps. The body of water may change. So, I'll give you an example.
Balls,
Like we have,
toxins in the water are always going to be toxic.
Which is why like I said, I'm in favor of more regulation. And that the deregulation thing is just a safeguard on we shouldn't be making sure that we're reassessing periodically.
Why would you sunset like those like regulations on what is poisonous in water, for instance?
I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just said that.
That's why I said I think it's an overestimation of. I think you may overestimate what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
Is that typically I think like phthalates, for instance, should be regulated. I don't believe there's a quote unquote free market solution to keeping endocrine disruptors in our food. That makes no sense.
No, I agree with that. I don't think that's controversial. But
there are regulations on things like your vehicles, your engine standards, guns, for instance. And I'm not saying I know specifically each and every regulation that should be deregulated. I think it is prudent for a society to say, hey, there's no market solution to stop people putting poison in our food. Our food has become just trash. But there is still a circumstance where we do understand that not every government application is going to be permanent or will work permanently. And I can put it a different way. There may come a point where the regulation isn't strong enough. And if we don't reassess what the law is.
Oh, I have no problem with strengthening regulations. I just, when you say deregulate or we should have regulations sunset or anything like that, I mean,
it just depends on what
you understand that, like, what we're talking about here is there is a battle between people who would profit privately.
Okay, is there a hype train happening? Am I my bourbon gamer, thank you for the 5 gifted. I think you guys want this real bad.
Oh my God, I will vote.
I'm sorry.
I will vote.
For Donald Trump.
Oh my God, I will vote. I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. The people go out to vote, no fear, no more. Vote for Trump. Let's go. Vote for Trump. If you wanna keep America great, vote for Trump. Let's do it. I vote for Trump. Come on. Oh my God, I will vote.
Woke, they're woke. Okay, I gotta say something about this. Last night I was talking to Eddie Bareback about how much of a bop this song is, how much of a banger it is. And we started singing it at the club, and because it got stuck in my head, on the way back home, I caught myself humming this in the Uber, and I had to stop myself because, like, I was worried that the Uber driver was gonna think I'm a fucking Trump supporter. For Donald Trump. I'm so cooked. God bless America. I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. The problem is, like, the most like earwormy part of this song is when, you know, they say, I will vote. Oh my God, I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. And so that's the part that you sing. And then if that's the part that you sing, the average onlooker is not going to know what your fucking political perspective is. For Donald Trump. Okay. We love America just like you is such a good line. It's like, it's such a funny line because it's just like, hey, racist, like, we're racist too, I promise. Like, please don't think that we don't love America just because we have like a Hispanic accent. Like, they're trying to get these they're trying to get the racist right wingers to be like, oh, okay. Let's continue.
And socialize the costs. In other words, put it on all of us. So you want to sell, well, let's just go back to Flint. You want to sell you want privatize this water supply. You want to give contracts to, because this is what the Republican governor there wanted to do. And the costs associated in this instance, like, they wanted to save money by not necessarily treating the water or, by delivering it in a way that will save them money. But the costs are socialized insofar as you've poisoned thousands of these children.
I went to Flint and I actually ran tests on the water, and it's crazy the macroeconomic issues at hand in Michigan, and what ends up with like a Republican politician is that for a lot of the people that live in the area, they're not directly impacted by what's happening to these kids, right? For people who live outside the area, they're going to see the news and they're going to say, like, how could this be?
Okay, this conversation is going nowhere. Let's get to the Russia stuff, okay?
That thing or not?
Apparently it starts around here.
After the Qatar-Turkey pipeline fails, what ends up happening is Russia, Iran, and Turkey started cutting a deal with to run a pipeline from the same gas
what
field.
was also problematic about Trump getting out of the Iran nuke deal unilaterally in that respect, right? Because we have now pushed Iran further away into that sphere of influence?
As it pertains to the gas trade-offs and the conflicts in Europe, I don't know. I wouldn't know enough. I can say that even during Obama, the Stuxnet was probably a really bad idea. Are you familiar with Stuxnet?
Yeah, that was Israel.
Israel and the United States teamed up to create a virus that blew up centrifuges in Iran, which didn't war much. I'm surprised it didn't escalate in a dangerous way.
I mean, but fortunately, one of the best things that Obama did was to make that nuke deal. Let me ask you this, since you bring up Russia. Yeah. Do you feel like that you have to put some type of disclaimer because of the whole tenant thing, or no?
No. I never received money from Russia. We never were given any money to create anything. Tenant Media and
it was all laundered through Tenant Media. I mean, obviously you didn't get you weren't getting paid in rubles.
So I can try. Right. I'll keep it real simple. You have sponsors on your show. Did you ever ask who their investors are? Did you?
The sponsors?
Yeah, like a company comes to you and says, "We want to, have you shout us out or something." Do you look into their financiers? Do you dig through their bank accounts?
I mean, we get it all from media brokers, but they weren't advertising on your show. They were.
No, it was
they were paying you a license deal,
a license fee.
Yeah.
So I licensed to Nat Geo. I never asked them who their investors were.
Who? National Geographic.
Yeah.
National Geographic was taking Tim Pool's videos. There's no way, right? What the fuck? What the fuck could he possibly sell them? Like, what would National Geographic syndicate from like the Tim Pool show?
When I license through like all these other big distributors, someone comes to me, they say, we want a license. It goes to our lawyer comes back, says, here's the agreed upon fee. I say, thank you and have a nice day. And then we move on.
So was it just Ruben who asked who do or whatever that guy's name was?
I don't know.
Gerard Depardieu catching strays. French cinematic actor Gerard Depardieu catching a random stray in this conversation, in this debate, is not something that I thought was going to happen. Okay.
What Dave did or anybody else did?
Did you ask about who that guy was?
Absolutely. And you know what's crazy is...
Well, wait a second. Why did you ask about who that guy was?
Wanted to know. Isn't that due diligence?
Yeah, but you just said you don't ask who the investors are.
No, I said, do you? Like, do you dig into all of these things?
I've never actually been approached with anything even remotely like that.
So when I got reached out to by Discovery and Nat Geo, I said, I'm familiar with what this is. It's whatever.
Yeah, no. If a I mean, I licensed my show to Peacock, and
right, you know what they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, National Geographic is a well-known thing. But if somebody comes in and says like, we're going to give you that kind of money for your programming, I'd be like,
how much money do you make on Majority Report?
Fuck is that?
How much money do you make on Majority Report?
How much do I make from on our revenue from the whole show?
All of it, 100%.
I mean, it's six
figures
revenue. Yeah,
per month.
Yeah.
Why were you
6 figures? Yeah.
So you're over 100K per month on Majority Report.
I think. Well, I mean, some months. I mean, certainly the past couple of months have been really good. Some months are a little bit less.
I think you do a majority. I don't know about your other channels, but you do about 20 million per month in views.
Other channels?
Like, I don't know if you have other shows. I'm saying
no.
Majority Report does about 20 million, and with 20 million views per month, you do over 6 figures.
We had 20 million views for 2 months this year.
If you do 20 million views per month, I think is your YouTube metric.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit less now, but okay.
Oh yeah. If a company came to you and wanted to license the show, which would...
I can tell you Peacock licensed a Majority Report we were on Peacock for a year.
You want to say what they gave you?
I will tell you this. From what I read, you made more in a month than we made in a year.
Maybe that's just bad business on your part, I guess.
Maybe. Or maybe it turns out that they were just a company who had metrics as opposed to like we're trying to get propaganda.
No, I think
I have a theory.
So I can tell you how much money we make at this company, right?
I would imagine it's millions.
Million per month, maybe.
Okay.
So when a company comes to me and says, we want to have you, who makes, as a company, $1 million a month, a show in which we will have a non-exclusive distribution, but takes the branding, then we're going to say, in 1 or 2 years, how much do we make on this show per month? Well, it's in excess of 400,000.
This was a new show. This was this show, right?
Well, so there's a few caveats. This channel is my first channel. It's got 1.35 million subscribers. It used to be my biggest channel where I would routinely get 500,000 to 1 million per video, or maybe like 600.
Do you believe Tim's show makes $1 million a month? I wouldn't be shocked. Right wingers have incredibly deep pockets. Like, I wouldn't be shocked about that. Like, because there are no restrictions. They do the shittiest ads. They take as many ads as possible. They have financiers as well on top of everything else. And they say left grifting is profitable. Yeah, I know. They say that because there is, that is also a part of the right wing grifting, to be like, left wing grifting is so profitable. Except everyone that wants to make more money ends up turning right wing, weirdly enough, either on certain issues or across the board. But like right wing content right wing content is catnip for the algorithm. That much is also true. Like, it sucks. It's just the reality, right? Like, there is not really anything you can do about it either. Like, these algorithms unironically boost right-wing shit like crazy. Patrick Bet David. I am currently, as it stands, I think 400. I just looked up my social blade stats. 457th in the news rank in the country. I'm the largest left-wing content creator, like, in North America. Largest progressive content creator in North America. And there is, like, I'm nowhere near close in terms of, like, how many more unimaginably successful right-wing content creators are. When there is more, or when there are even more right-wing content creators, there's more, you get boosted in the algorithm. Like, the fact that there are a shit ton of channels like that makes it, the fact that there are a shit ton of channels such as that, like right-wing channels, also boosts other right-wing content creators as well. So I don't think it's that crazy that he makes $1 million. But the reason why he's mentioning the Russian, like, the payments that he got is to be like, oh, well, I'm so successful that, like, of course it makes sense that they would give me, like, some random company would give me, $1 million a month to just, like, license out my content. The problem, on the other hand, is that you were also saying stuff like Ukraine is the enemy of mankind and shit. So, like, where did that come from? Like, it almost feels like you did know that you were getting paid by Russia and were changing your commentary specifically for that.
100,000 per video on certain shows. And then we're talking about doing a show like this where you'll get, you have 1.5 million subscribers. I've got 1 million+ subscribers, or with the other channels, it's big names coming, doing these debates tends to attract a lot of sponsorship. So,
have you had any other deals like this?
Yes.
Oh, you have had other deals like this.
So,
because I seem to remember you saying to Emma that you had not, that it was just all from members, or you didn't have any back
sponsors. There's no backers, right?
Well, a license deal is not a sponsorship. Like, I mean, I have sponsors.
Sales.
Like, I have. Well, it's different.
No one has come to this company. Let's clarify.
Hello Tushy comes and says we want to sell bidets.
Here's the difference.
I do an ad, but I don't have a license.
No one has come to my companies, plural, and said, I will give you X in exchange for X in terms of the production of content or a stake in the company. We have no investors. We have no backing. We have sales.
Have you had other license deals like that? I'm not talking about a sponsor. Tenet Media was not a sponsor.
It was a non-exclusive distribution license.
Yeah, it was a license deal. Yeah. No, I get that.
So
have you had other license deals like that?
Yes. And so this is not
with who? Is it another? I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, I gotta wait because some of these deals are still in contract negotiation, so I can't.
Oh, so you didn't have any prior to the Tenet, or you did?
I have licensed content to big networks. We have explicitly and on a low scale.
Prior to this, you had licensed it to other big networks.
I'm confused as what I have licensed my content to other big networks
prior to the Tenet deal.
Yes.
Oh,
and we also
what were those networks?
So like Nat Geo and Discovery when they hired me for content.
No, I'm talking about these shows. I'm not talking about when you were, I'm talking about the whole Timcast world.
Before Tenet, there were 3 negotiations currently taking place, and I can't say too much because I can't violate other contracts. Offers were made.
You're not supposed to tell who you're licensing to?
When you are in contract negotiations, first, You don't go out and just say, "Hey, guess what? This company's offering me right
No,
now."
of course not. Of course not. I'm not asking what you're in negotiations for the future. I'm saying prior.
right, so let me finish. Yes.
Prior to Tenet Media.
Okay.
Had you had any other license deals?
License deals presented that were comparable, and one was chosen.
Okay, so
And some are ongoing.
so you never had any other deals. People had proposed them to you, but you'd never
with
signed
higher
a deal.
rates. We were offered more money from other companies.
And you went with Tenet
Yes.
for a license deal.
I was offered a license agreement for comparable. I try to keep it vague, I guess, because
So just to be clear, you never signed another deal before Tenet. You had never had a license deal prior to that as Timcast.
No. Okay, look. Yes, I did. I said it like 5 times now.
Oh,
I've licensed content to a ton of networks.
Oh, I was just curious as to what networks those were. I don't know why you're getting so upset.
Because I've said it 5 times. You keep asking the same question over and over again.
Wait, no, he didn't. He just said Nat Geo.
You said Nat Geo, and
So I've licensed content to like Discovery, Net Geo, and then there's media buyers who
but
do
not
general-
as Timcast. Not
Yes,
like
yes, just quite literally as Timcast from this channel.
Damn,
Oh,
he's
really,
getting
dude?
fucking
That's-
hella mad. Bro, yo, chill. This is supposed to be a reasonable, dare I say, friendly discussion. You asked Sam Seder about how much money he fucking makes every month, and he responded kindly. He didn't fucking start yelling. Why is he getting so defensive? Goddamn.
Geo. Okay.
Yes, and I've even appeared on their networks. So I can say it a million times. We were dealing with negotiations. We gave the deal to our lawyers. Our lawyers come back and say, "Looks good," and then we start.
Okay.
The show already existed.
Yeah. No, I never thought that you were in the bag for. Well, I mean, I never
Russia's a
thought
bunch
they
of
were
scumbags.
telling you what to do. I just thought it was.
I think the funniest question should be, in this circumstance, do you think it's a patriotic thing to take all the money that you've gotten from the Russian government, as the FBI correctly pointed out, and give it to Ukrainian charities? Do you feel like that would be the patriotic thing to do? Take all of the money that the Russian government has given you. Do you feel like that would be the right, appropriate thing to do? And give it directly to Ukrainian charities, especially after you called Ukraine the enemy of mankind? I would want to know what his answer to that would be. I think that'd be funny.
A lot of money to be getting, and not asking who, Gerard Depardieu was, or whatever the guy's name, Gregorian.
So the issue I think is worthy of clarification is, like, you yourself make 6 figures a month on your show.
Well, that's our revenue of the show. I don't make that.
Right, the revenue of this show and otherwise, like, $1 million doesn't go in my pocket every month, but we have staff and we have employees, and so it's around there. So when a company comes, and we had several, and they say, "This is huge," we had a $30
Are
million
you back in
offer.
negotiations with those people?
Yes,
I would imagine.
especially considering
It feels like you've had to, like, what was this whole thing where you're shutting down the show? Or
that's exactly what I was going to say. Right, like, I can't be the CEO, principal talent, and a dad. It's already difficult to
so
do.
maybe I'm not such a bad businessman.
Maybe you're a good dad.
I got 2, and but whatever. That's it.
Well, so like I've got to record 4 shows today. And that's an impossibility with a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like last week, I'm like, I can keep doing the morning show because that will keep me occupied.
You shut down your news operation too, didn't you?
Scanner is still in operation, but it's like,
Didn't you have like a news like a website or something?
yeah, we still do. And so there was we did Timcast News for a while, and then we had another company called Scanner that we are trying to get off the ground, and it's still there, but we're in a holding pattern. Content is still being produced for Scanner, but we have to figure out, like, here's the reality, man. News articles, the news media is a very, very difficult thing to monetize.
Very tough. Very tough.
You can write articles all day and night. You can send reporters on the ground, which we do, and then figuring out how to make that sustainable is incredibly difficult. And it gets to that point where, we can't. But I will say, in regards to what happened Monday, last week, one of the offers we got was $30 million. And it comes with caveats. And so we go to these other companies and say, what are your terms? What are your offers? What are your terms? What are your offers? And then ultimately Tenet we were like, we'll go with them. That's whatever. We go to our lawyer goes through it. We say, all
so
right.
Tenet didn't pay $30 million.
No.
Sounds like they paid a hefty amount. I mean, if you're Dave Rubin, what do you think about that? Like, I mean, if you're Dave Rubin and somebody says, we're going to give you $100,000 a video, doesn't that like make you go like, what's up with this?
No, because what's interesting in the indictment is you can see that independent of each other, several people made the same negotiations. A lot of this goes through agents, and agents go to a market standard rate when you're negotiating.
I mean,
with
I
companies.
understand. I mean, I've dealt with agents, but I mean, if
But you
somebody
don't set your price. I mean, your agent's going to tell you what you're going to be able to get from something, right? Or do you go to your agent? You could go to your agent and say, I'll only do the job for this amount. I get it. But
There's, in my mind, very little shot that Tim did not know that he was getting paid by Russia. I do not. I'm sorry. Like, there is just no, like, no. Especially because of that famous clip. Like, that clip alone to me is like, that's, you know, like, this is it, brother. This is pretty.
Ukraine, and they know it. But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong, I know. You've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind.
Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and the world. Like, Ukraine is the greatest threat to the nation and the world. That is insane, dude. Like,
all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
we should apologize to Russia. We should apologize to Russia for invading Ukraine. Like, as you guys know, I have had, I would say, a fairly reasonable, fairly rational take on trying to find a long-standing, peaceful solution to the unjustifiable, immoral, barbaric invasion of Ukraine conducted by the Russian government. And it's like, and yet, of course, many people have said time and time again that I am pro-Russia over and over again. Those people have never really listened to what I have to say, I think, because if you have ever listened to me talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I have consistently maintained the position that it is completely unacceptable. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. We must apologize to Russia. Like, come on, dude. That is incredible stuff.
Usually, there's, it's going to be like, look, this is the kind of job that's going to pay in a range of here. The company's got this much. Here's what you're going to be able to get for it. So, for instance, like 500,000 views might be $10,000 in ads, right?
Okay.
That's market standard. So if you're talking CPM and I call like an ad sales guy and they say, hey, this company wants to sponsor you, you get 500,000 on the show, they're going to give you $10,000. I can say, right, that's the market range. And so then I might try and argue a premium and be like, well, I'm Tim Pool, so I think you should give me 15. And then they'll come back and say, no.
We're not talking about sponsorships.
We're talking about the value of a license agreement where a company would have the ability to run sponsorships
Right.
on their end.
Right.
So if we're talking about, say, Timcast IRL in the morning show, which we do around $1 million in revenue per month, then a comparable show is you're going to say this when you're licensing a show. If we run the show by ourselves for a year or two, then here's how much we're going to generate in sponsorships, memberships, et cetera, by the end of year 2, 3, 4, and 5. If we do a license deal, we jump the gun. We generate lesser revenue than we would in the long term, but it closes the gap sooner.
No, I get it. I
then there's
understand why you would take it. I would take that money if somebody came to me and offered that, but I would be like, wait, what's going on here?
But you would be, I mean, we have 3 different companies coming at us. They're all known American enterprises. I mean, I will say one thing too, like Lauren Chen's was working at the Blaze. You know what I mean? This is not like some strange person appeared out of nowhere.
Raises questions to me about
Was that the
where
Blaze?
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I think, it's quite clear to me that, and I mean, you know, there was reports about like in the run up to the election, George Santos was on a Zoom call where people were getting paid at least $20,000 to put out stuff that Kamala Harris was a slut on their social media and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 years and, you know, it's not a huge amount of competition on the left. Nobody's ever offered me $5 to do anything like that.
Let me let you in on the secret. This has been true for a long time. So your revenue for Majority Report, is it largely YouTube based, or do you do like ad reads as well?
It's ad reads, it's members, it's YouTube.
You have YouTube programmatic, so do we. Like programmatic ads means like your YouTube channel will show you how much you made from YouTube's ads.
Yes.
So Russia can go on your YouTube channel through Google Ads and put $10,000 a month into your channel without you knowing.
Okay.
And you'd have no way to track or control any of that. So this.
You know, it's okay. This
does happen though, where.
So this in and of itself is not an appropriate argument because the responsibility is in the hands of YouTube, to ensure that this does not happen. And they do already have protections against that sort of thing. You got directly paid for your content and maybe even the actual contents of your content. Oh shit. I got lost in the sauce here. I was supposed to have Edinger Mentum on to talk about the polls, and then I forgot. We'll get back to this stuff in a second, but let's talk to Edinger Mentum to talk about the polls, and then we'll get back to this. Hello?
Hi. Oh, yeah, I think my mic's on. Hello.
Are you showing us your face? Are you doing a face reveal?
No, my mic's not working. I'll probably do that. If you guys want, I'll do that on the election night stream. But
wow, you're just fucking teasing us, man.
No, I went on the. You guys can see on the Majority Report.
So you do face reveals on Majority Report, but not here. Got it. Okay, that's nice.
No, my camera is legitimately whatever. You'll get. I want to drive up interest. It's called business. It's called business. I'm a businessman.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I got to respond to my manager real quick. Edinger Mentum, everybody. He's going to give us some updates on Poll Watch. He's doing Poll Watch with us for now. We were watching Sam Seder eviscerate Tim Pool, walking him through the steps. All right, so Texas is a swing state, right? And so is Florida?
No, that's not real. It could have been real. I think it could have been real potentially, but it's not real. Unless like shit is really massively off, but it's fake. I've been a Blexus denier for a while now.
Yeah,
and this is just me being kind of vindicated there. People like this is something I'll maybe talk about in a bit. But when everybody talks about like the really fast growth that you see in southern states or Sunbelt states as something they just assume it will be great for Democrats, they miss how a lot of that growth is in Chud counties, and it's just resulting in the Chuds getting higher like vote margins, even if vote like raw margins, even if their net like wins in those counties like decrease. Like there's one county outside of Atlanta that like has grown like 20% in just like the past 3 years. So it already matched its total 2020 turnout like today just through early voting. And Texas is really ground zero. I don't know if you showed people that study that showed like what the partisanship of the people who are moving to different states were, but it's really crazy. I think like the people moving to Florida are like R+40. So it's like Florida actually is more on Wakanda.
Okay. Here's a angry staffer talking about Nate Cohn's new article on polling accuracy. I'm going to get right into it. Basically, pollsters are terrified of being wrong again, so they're flat out ignoring very blue results. As a result, pollsters are more willing to take steps to produce more Republican-leaning results. This is something that we've talked about in terms of like the +2 Republican advantage, like the Republican balancing in every poll, even if the data is not showing that, like their own personal data is not showing that, in order to make up for the polling inaccuracies that have occurred, because Trump has been consistently, as the great white hope, undermined by our woke liberal pollsters.
Yeah, trying to demoralize the conservatives from not voting because they always show them down.
Yeah.
That's the story. But yeah, that is a big, well, the thing with the +2, I don't know if you mentioned this, but a really interesting thing with that for me is that number in a lot of cases comes from Pew survey that they conducted over like from February to July, where they asked people their partisan leanings, and it's like this huge survey that gets really high response rates. They pay people to respond to it, so it's hopefully it gets a more representative sample, and it can represent like how the actual partisanship and what these low info Trump voters what they feel in the survey. And their finding was that like the country has a partisan lean of R+2, like you said, and a lot of pollsters that don't have the money or the time to conduct those kinds of massive surveys have used it as a reference survey. It's called the National Public Opinion Reference Survey. The problem with that survey, it's not like necessarily badly conducted. Pew does a good job usually, but it was conducted while Biden was a Democratic nominee the entire time. So you could very well see this like metric that like a lot of big pollsters are using could be reflecting a political reality that does not exist in the current state of events with Kamala the nominee.
What do you think about the argument that I presented that there is no shy Republican voter any longer in the way that there were in 2016, whereas there are definitely shy Kamala voters, I think, a multitude of different reasons, including, but not limited to, possible political violence coming their way if they were to openly demonstrate support for Kamala Harris, given how confident Republicans have become in terms of like dishing out violence, or even just straight up being embarrassed to be in the tank for Kamala Harris, in a similar vein to like being in the tank for Joe Biden, despite like the inevitability that they would have gone and voted for Joe Biden. They did not openly defend Joe Biden. This is vibes-based analysis in general, but I feel like at this stage, given the way the polls are looking, given the... Sorry.
At the very least, no, it's fine. At the very least, there is the idea of there having been a silent Republican vote that might not have ever been real. If you look back at what Republican pollsters were saying for like a very long period of time, they had always been accusing pollsters of not like contacting the silent Republicans, or that there was something of a shy Tory effect happening in the U.S. That has like always been the bag of right-wing pollsters. They were saying that back in 2012, and Trump being underestimated in the polls was like the big moment. They're like, oh, see, you guys didn't reach out to real America, and all the liberals being very self-flagellating just like took that, oh my God, we're so elitist and stupid. We didn't do that. We're awful. We need to change everything. But there's not much evidence that that's really like that. It might be the case that they can't reach out to certain kinds of really like low info, just disillusioned anti-establishment Trump supporters. But the idea that Trump supporters are just not saying who they want to vote for because of social stigma, there's not like really evidence of that. There wasn't even like in 2016, we have like the reason why the polls were off because pollsters didn't wait by education. In 2020, a probable reason why they were off then is because the liberals who were staying inside were answering polls at really, really high rates, like higher than usual, and it like gave them incorrect sample sizes. So neither of those things had anything to do with Trump supporters just being embarrassed of who they vote for. And I think like the idea that that's the case, I honestly comes from like conservatives who like the really elite conservatives live in very blue areas where they're personally embarrassed to admit that they support Trump. And they're transposing that onto the rest of the conservatives who live in areas that are very, very supportive of their beliefs and don't necessarily need to be quiet. And like even the Daily Wire was headed out of LA for like several years. Like these guys have a perspective that is a lot more coastal and elitist than they like to believe.
I agree. I agree with your analysis here. But overall, what are some give us some signs that Kamala Harris is actually doing relatively well in the polls? That or the performance has been good so far, because on the vibes based front, I do look at like some of the motion from the Trump campaign. Whether it be like literally trying to hug and kiss the Arab voting bloc in Michigan, I don't think you do that if you're already confident about like the way that you've presented how you're going to win every state.
Yeah, because that creates problems when governing, because you have a lot of you would rather have a very cohesive coalition backing you instead of a ton of different groups that all have their different priorities that you may have to abandon and won't be in a good position afterwards. Like, yeah, I would agree with that. That's not something Republican campaigns traditionally do. It is not what you do when you're confident.
Yeah, he's stopping by like Arab-owned restaurant in Dearborn, Michigan. He's the first candidate to come here this cycle. I asked him why Dearborn. He said he's building inroads with Lebanese and Muslims. Got a warm reception here. And yeah, I mean, I think that the Democratic Party has basically carved out the Arab and Lebanese and Muslim vote in every state, but especially so in Michigan, as they've activated Richie Torres, AIPAC's biggest attack dog, to go and give assurances to the Jewish voters in Michigan that they hate Arabs. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's not even a huge Jewish population in Michigan. There's a larger, if you really want to go that far, you would probably go to Georgia, where they're or Pennsylvania. The minority group in Michigan is very much Arabs. It's more, it's a lot of what people say about minority outreach, quote unquote, where it's less about actually reaching out to those groups and more about signaling to the majority population that you're not president for the minorities.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, with Bill Clinton as well. But Bill Clinton in North Carolina was also already a weird person to deploy there.
Yeah.
But then also beyond North Carolina, sending him to Michigan, a state notoriously where the Clintons did not do well last time they were matched up against Donald Trump. And beyond that, to go there and just be sorry, Arabs are just not real humans, and only Israelis are the real humans in this equation. And of course, they're going to want to seek out revenge like it's normal. And then repeating Itamar Ben-Gvir lines about how, that's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as the West Bank. So
that was insane.
So
They should go against a lot of what people say about the fucking Camp David Accords, where they talk about Clinton like he was this honest fucking broker.
Yeah, or the fucking president, the current president and the vice president running to be president have both said, we want a 2-state solution. You're literally going against their fake nonsensical bullshit by you're destroying the veneer of any sort of peaceful accord in that process. So
yeah,
I think that the reason why they're doing that is, one, because they genuinely do not believe that Arabs are human beings. People from the MENA region are human beings. But the way that they are publicly communicating this, in my opinion, is more cynical. Me and Uncle Cenk have privately corresponded on this. He is of a different mind, where he believes that it's genuine Democratic Party incompetence. I think it's something a little bit more sinister, where they're, I think, like, priming the base to be more like, I think they're trying to offer a permission structure to the base to be like, no, these guys aren't a part of our coalition, actually.
Yeah. And also, like, if you look at what the theoretical basis for a lot of the defections, the people who say they won't vote for Democrats, because we need to prove that we're a wild card who might not be part of, who, if they don't line with our interests, we won't support them. Similar to how the Christian right did it in the 90s, where they knew that their best interests were with the Republicans, but they were willing to take some temporary losses. Obviously, the stakes for them were far lower than what left-wing groups in this, because the Democrats in the 90s weren't exactly anti their interest, but they were able to pressure the Republicans immensely by proving that they were an invaluable part of their coalition, that they could walk if they wanted to. James Dobson, one of the really huge Christian right bigwigs at the time, left the Republican Party outright in 1996, and that terrified the Republican Party, and it created this kind of the basic kind of back and forth with interest groups like the religious right, or with pro-Palestinian groups, where you kind of have to show that you're not bluffing when you say you're gonna defect. Unions do that sometimes. It's a basic thing. And what the Democrats are trying to do on their end is they may be trying to specifically win states like Michigan or Georgia, which has a large Muslim population, and Gwinnett County, or Wisconsin, which also has a large they have a large Bosnian Muslim community in Milwaukee, I believe. They're trying to prove to these people who are trying to exert pressure on them that we can win with our new coalition of Liz Cheney, anti-Trump Republicans, that you aren't needed to get victory, and that we can do whatever policies we want, and you can't pressure us. Because now they might be feeling a degree of heat from the idea that oh, we won Michigan by a close margin, and there are this many Democratic voters in Dearborn, and if they can win Michigan without getting large, losing those cities, losing those demographics, they will feel like they have all the cards. It's a policy play, not an electoral one. They want to really like relieve themselves of even the perceived pressure that could be on them in the case that they have to rely on these groups.
Yeah. I think that is one aspect of this for sure. And I think the other aspect of it is in the same vein as like their anti-migrant sentiment that they've expressed over and over again, as they've adopted the right-wing framing that immigrants constitute a national security threat, which is directly the opposite of that sort of messaging that the Democratic Party has always championed, that like immigrants are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're people that contribute. And yeah, we'll do some, stronger border measures, but that always comes with like a price where we can extract some concessions, right?
Yeah.
They've completely dropped the ball on that, and I think the reason why they're doing that specifically is to prime their base with to basically decouple Gaza or present Gaza and like American foreign policy or our allegiances to Israel as like only a Muslim thing. I think that's one other aspect of this, to be like, only Muslims care about this. You don't care about this. See, like you also understand, like if they killed, if your neighbors executed your family members, like you would also want vengeance too. And I think that's the nefarious aspect of this messaging. I think that it's like very cynical and dare I say even calculated to be like, to give white people, not just in the suburbs, but like younger students and black and brown people, the knowledge or the permission to say like, oh yeah, that's just basically like a Muslim thing, and there's a lot more to care about than just this like thing that only Muslims care about, which is not reflective of the poll results in general. And it's no different than going to the Michigan Jewish population and telling them like, don't worry, we hate the Arabs. Like, there are plenty of Jews. I mean, you're Jewish, but there are plenty of Jews in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and all around that are dedicated anti-Zionists. And beyond that, Jews who are not anti-Zionist are not voting at the behest of Israel anyway. Like that's not their top priority at all, at least in terms of like all the polls I've seen. It's the 9th priority. Now, one might make the argument that it's only the 9th priority in the top 10 priorities because both parties are uniparty in their support for Israel. But it would at least reflect higher in the polling results, despite the uniparty attitude, if this was something that they cared about the most. And they are when Jewish voters as a voting bloc are going out to vote and voting by margins like 70% plus towards the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think this is also part of their larger like kind of scheme, like the larger project that they're undertaking, where a lot of Bidenomics, like even the left wing like aspects of it, the spending, the CHIPS Act, the all of these things, it's always couched in the language of national security, like fighting against China, fighting against Russia, like it's making America the predominant hegemon in the world. And it's like it's interesting. Like the thing that people have kind of noticed is that the idea of just creating a stronger or fairer economy, these basic liberal justifications for social programs that are supposed to justify themselves, that doesn't really exist. The international conflict, the great power conflict, is at the core of what their project is. And they kind of need, if this is going to sustain itself, they need the only people who care about the negative impacts of war to be specific groups that can be targeted and aren't huge and can be managed. It can't be like a larger like society defining larger electoral issue like the Vietnam War was. It needs to just be the case that only Ukrainians care about Ukraine, which they like have kind of adopted when they made fun of Trump for being pro-Russia, saying, "Oh, there's so many Ukrainian and Polish voters in Ukraine," but not in Ukraine, in Pennsylvania. It's the idea that these conflicts can be managed with only very minimal political backlash. It's not really something that's even true, but it's more of something they kind of want to manifest for themselves for these overseas commitments to sustain themselves.
Yeah. But going back to it, you have a Truth World poll in front of me right now from YouGov.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania showing +3 for Kamala Harris, Trump at 46, Wisconsin showing +4 for Kamala Harris. this is starting to reflect like the down ballot races. I don't know what the down ballot races look like in these states in this individual poll, but this is starting to catch up to the performance of. This is starting to catch up to the. Wait, sorry. This is starting to catch up to the performance of the state races that are happening in the down ballot races as well, with the exception of Nevada, I guess, and Arizona.
And North Carolina with the governor's race,
And,
but that's
well,
special.
Like, governors races are different. Not only because like the guy is a person who has openly stated his desires to be a black Adolf Hitler or whatever, but also because like I think gubernatorial races are oftentimes like more personal, and you know that's why you have the blue state, red governor, red state, blue governor dynamic anyway.
Gubernatorial races.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, this is a really encouraging set of polls. Not only does it show Kamala up in the state she needs to get 270, plus Nevada and Arizona tied, but even at Trump's states where he's ahead are within the margin of error. And it fits within, like YouGov is one of the pollsters. There are 3 pollsters really that I have an eye out on, 2 of them because of their history, and one of them YouGov because they've done something interesting that I mentioned in the article about why the polls could be underestimating Democrats. Marist and New York Times were 2 pollsters in 2022, which was a year when a lot of pollsters at the very end of the race herded and went hard to the right in like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia. All of those races at the end either showed Republican leads or very like basically tied races. New York Times and Marist both put out a set of Senate surveys that showed Democrats leading by about the margins that they won by. So that gives us some trust that they're not only good pollsters, but they are willing to publish results that like aren't based on what they think will be best and are just based on what they see. Marist last night came out with a set of Rust Belt polls that all showed Kamala Harris up after a lot of less trustworthy pollsters who weren't as good in 2022 had it basically tied or a slight Trump lead. Gov is another interesting one where they're not as high quality historically, but we do know that they have made changes to account for possibly changing response rates where Republicans may be more likely to respond to polls than Democrats. And that's not something we think that other pollsters, we don't know that other pollsters are doing. If we've heard anything like from that Nate Cohn article, it's that pollsters are doing the exact opposite. And YouGov, interestingly, has been one of Kamala's better pollsters this cycle. So, like YouGov, we know is like reacting to the response world, the way that the people are actually responding to pollsters in a more realistic and responsive way. Marist, we know, is very strong. And New York Times, I think they'll have their polls out tomorrow morning, and those could be good for Democrats also. If it's not good for Democrats, that would be good for Trump, I think. Obviously, but I think specifically from the New York Times, because the New York Times has gotten things right for Democrats when like the rest of the world said no. So if New York Times puts out a result that's good for Democrats, we can kind of maybe say that there's a gap between what the other pollsters who we can't trust are saying and what the pollsters who we can trust are saying. So like, it's not as extreme as it was 2 years ago, but it will be pretty noticeable depending on what the New York Times says tomorrow.
So, have you been looking at early voting data? Is that something that you care about, or do you think it's just like junk science in general?
It's you have to be very careful about it. I think if I haven't, like, I've tried to track it in Georgia, which is a state that I know pretty well. Georgia has had like very high early voting rates, and what we've seen there is like both sides have something to be happy about there. The Atlanta area counties that Democrats really need have both have all turned out at a rate higher than the rest of the state. There have been some northern counties like in Georgia who are very Republican that have also had very high turnout rates. I don't think that like it really says anything definitive for either side. It'll probably just come out down to persuasion, which, but that's worth noting by itself because like that means that it doesn't lean one way or the other. The Nevada stuff is something that I think that's one of the places where you can make some conclusions. And from what I've seen, this year is like usually strong for Republicans. A lot of that is due to a lot of left-leaning voters registering as independents, kind of like you said, as a possible like silent Kamala voter effect, where younger Democrats aren't as happy with the party or proud of it as right-leaning younger people. And it's become very difficult to tell what goes on in Nevada because of how many young independents there are who aren't registered as Democrats but could be voting for Democrats. But even if like Nevada is bad for her, we would sort of expect it wouldn't really be the end of the world, because it could be a sign of what some pollsters have found, that the new realignment is that Republicans are doing better among non-whites and Democrats are doing relatively stronger among white voters. So Trump maybe having a small win in Nevada would be maybe a good sign for him in Arizona, but largely like having a lot of gains with Hispanics doesn't mean all that much in the grand scheme of things in the Electoral College. Most Hispanics live in states like California or Texas or Florida that aren't competitive. So him making gains with those voters won't really impact much outside of those two states. The one exception to this is Pennsylvania, but the Hispanic vote there is largely Puerto Rican, which could be a uniquely difficult demographic for him as a result of a late breaking news story that I think everybody has heard of here.
Yeah, one of the greatest comedians of all time, in the tank, secret sleeper cell for Kamala Harris, activated by also secret sleeper cell for Kamala Harris, Joe Rogan. We're talking, of course, about Tony Hinchcliffe's Trash Island comments.
Yeah, they're gonna kill Tony in real life if that ends up happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only counter to that I would present to you is basically this. I'm gonna do a screen sharing here.
This is the greatest song of all time.
Yeah. You have no answer for this. Liberals have no answer for this.
This made Florida a red state single-handedly.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, the Democratic Party has no answer for this. All they have is like lib shit where they bring like a bunch of Broadway musical stars to get together and be like, you should vote. Voting is good. Like,
this made Florida single-handedly into more on Wakanda. It was one of those powerful videos in history.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It is like liberals say Tim Kaine in the membrane. Republicans say I will vote for Donald Trump. And, you know, this is the reason why there's like a 20-point swing in young Hispanic men, I think, to the Republican Party.
Damn, this guy's good.